have it.
That's what it's for. It doesn't matter when he gets here, he gets to see. Tim gets to see.
Your email? I was just saying, but when you.
I'm his right hand.
Do you want me to change the dates if the dates are changed?
I don't care.
Yeah, you have, yeah. Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna call this meeting of the annual business meeting of the Library Board of Trustees to order. Everyone please rise for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, our first order of business is to swear in our new trustees and returning trustees. So you guys come on up. I'll just do this together. Here.
Oh, do you have to read?
No, I'll just repeat after me.
It's like getting married.
No, just do it together. Just try to go through the
marriage
different,
picture, so you
yeah.
have to stand next to me.
Alright, just try to repeat it after me as best you can. It's not very long.
Do it
I do
together.
solemnly affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States
I do solemnly affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States
I do solemnly affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of library trustee
I will faithfully discharge the duties of library trustee
I will faithfully discharge the duties of the library trustee
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations, welcome. We just gotta have you sign this.
It's not official, so just.
Yeah.
You want to sign right here or not?
Yeah.
Right here.
Congratulations, Mike.
Oh, thank you.
Actually, I think give back to Jenna.
Oh.
All paperwork always goes to Jenna. It's a general rule of thumb.
General.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I'm going to help conduct the election of new board officers. So the chair of the nominating committee is not here yet. So Chris, as another committee member, do you have the slate for president, vice president, and secretary?
Yes, it's the same three now, Brian Best, Herb Henning for vice president and secretary.
And does anyone have anyone else they'd like to nominate for any of these positions? Okay, so can I call for a vote? Okay, so do I have a motion to elect this?
I'll make a motion to elect the slate of president, vice president, secretary.
And a second? Second by Barry. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And any abstentions? Okay. So now,
Alright, I think I'll take back over.
Okay.
So thank you, Tim, for running the election. Okay, so now we're gonna do a nomination of treasurer. Do I have a nomination from the nomination committee?
Oh, yes, we nominate, that was me. I didn't have that part down. Carol Malcolm.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Sarah Freeman. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations, you stuck with us for another term.
Hmm.
Here we go.
and thank you. Okay, I'm the one with the annual authorizations, right?
Okay.
We have,
And then the nomination of the 2000, actually, I'm just gonna nominate all of our committee slates right here along with the nominating committee. So I'll just pass this out. I kept the nominating committee the same. This will be everyone's, go with that. So really, I think everyone more or less stayed the same, except I think I took Maureen off of a policy committee, and then obviously Barry and Mike got appointed to committees. So just check out what committees you got appointed to. Generally, I try to put new people on the policy committee and also make sure that you're on most committees, so that way you can really kind of delve right in. So, and then
just like you for the chair was nominated.
Barbara was the chair. so then, yeah, Barbara. this is okay. So, this has to be approved, so give a sec to look at it, but,
So,
can I get a motion?
yeah, what is that motion going to be?
Motion to accept the, committee assignments.
I will make motion to accept the committee assignments.
Second that.
Alright, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Alright, congratulations. Okay, annual authorizations and resolutions.
Okay, so I have that in my packet. Do the board members have that in their packet too? I don't know. Okay, board authorizations. So, do we need to do them one at a time, or can we move to accept?
I think we can do, yeah, slate. Is there, take a second, take a look at it.
The resolutions are on the back, right?
Yeah, is that, those are two separate votes? right?
Yes.
I guess we do the first one.
First page.
So this is a new library auditors, right?
Yes.
Yes.
It's exciting, it's the first time we've had new auditors since I've been.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so far it seems to be going pretty well.
Yeah.
You know, it's obviously not going on yet, but there's a lot of prep. Tom Hosey at Marvin and Company, it's mostly Carol that's been doing it, but I get the emails too.
I'll make a motion to approve the board authorizations as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mike, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Alright, adopted. Next is the annual resolution. I would actually take a second.
Let's go back a second.
Oh,
Do
sorry.
you want to swear it down? It was
Yeah.
over,
Oh, yeah.
agenda.
I would actually swear you.
Sure. It's in here, right? So,
Can I get you?
I saw it over here a second. Oh, you signed it already? Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry.
Um,
Yeah, just say. it.
I do solemnly affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of treasurer of the Library Board of Trustees according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations. Okay, back to resolutions.
Yep, each of those resolutions is a separate, standalone, and I'm trying to remember, I will use my off-site memory and ask Margaret Garrett, but these were written by Chris Lane Chanton, or are they standard for every library in the state that they need to?
It's not every library in the state, it's usually the public libraries, and Chris Lane Chanton gave us the language on it.
Okay, so.
And the first is to pay bills
Mhm.
that need to be done in a timely fashion, like utilities, water, things like that have to be paid. Our insurance, that goes before the board, sometimes after the checks have been written, since there are 2 months where we skip meetings.
And another example is bills that will, if not paid in a timely manner, they'll incur a finance charge.
Correct.
That we don't want to incur. So it's kind of a boilerplate authorization to pay certain kinds of bills that are enumerated in the top resolution. So, and obviously we would acknowledge these or pass these resolutions in prior years as well.
Mhm.
So,
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Herb, second by Barry.
The first one. First resolution.
The first resolution, right.
Herb and Barry.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion adopted. Now the second motion, do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Caitlin, second by Mike. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, adopted. All right, our annual policies. Let's do these one at a time. Whistleblower, code of ethics.
We're just supposed to sign these.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sign them and give them to Jenna, right?
So I would just say, just sign them.
All right, sign them and give them to Jenna. All right, moving on. Our annual committee reports. So building grounds, is that in here?
I don't remember seeing it.
So Jason didn't do that. then, finance,
Mine is in here.
I saw that, thank you.
I don't know if it's important, but, the first sentence says the committee met in September 2018, so on my copy. I-
2017,
Yeah, so.
sorry. I'm rushing things.
Okay.
I'm already meeting in
Back,
September.
back to the people.
We'll do the same.
You found that, didn't you?
No, David.
David Gilliam? Okay.
We don't have to adopt these, right?
No,
Okay.
just report.
Yeah, just take a look at them.
Just to let you know also, there's on the back of that is the audit RFP review committee report. And we chose Marvin Company.
Wait, so, okay.
Policy, do you wanna read that policy?
Sure, so we have an email today from Karen, who's, out of town. And it says, "Hi there, I'm sure I told you I'm on vacation, but if you need any, or if you read anything for policy report, it's simply have and will continue to review policies on a yearly basis depending on date and need relative to new issues. I believe in my current tenure, we have reviewed and revised 10 policies. Thanks again, let me know if you need anything further." And I asked Brian earlier if we could just use this email as the annual report of the policy committee. Were you okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll have Jenna file it into the annual file, so.
So then, Herb, you wanna, just give us?
Yeah, the Personnel and Labor Management Committee report is in the file.
Thank you.
Of course, you know, we can't go into specific cases or anything before this protected by law, but this does give an overview of what the committee's responsibilities are, what gets done.
Thank you very much.
And on the back of that, there's the Upper Hudson Library System Delegate report, which I also tried to give some idea of what the Upper Hudson Library System does.
Thank you, Herb, I appreciate it. It's a lot of work, so I appreciate it. By far the most of it, so thank you. So missing, I think I moved some. Okay. So then, building and grounds, Jason didn't do, foundation, do you wanna just give us some kind of, or did you say you had that in the back?
I didn't do a report for that because it's not committee, so I didn't, but, basically, we, discussed mostly throughout the year, the gala. Just gonna be in September.
Great.
What other events did we have? I guess we had a couple more, but
Yeah, David Oshinsky, I think, was one of them.
the local,
Oh, yeah, Peter Golden.
Peter Goldman.
And then, just because I might forget it when we get into the regular meeting, so at the foundation meeting the other day, the foundation is trying to deal with, this board's decision to move to the third Thursday of the month. They don't quite know what to do, but it appeared to me that what they're going to do is continue to meet on the third Thursday of the month, but at 6:15 PM, with the hopes that the board liaison to the foundation and myself and Mark can attend 45 minutes worth of their meeting. And quite frankly, from one perspective, that's quite welcome because it means, for many of us, one less meeting, you know.
Right.
But it also certainly means we're only there for 45 minutes, so, because then we come here, yeah.
The other issue I just bring up is that we're gonna try to do, something like naming rights, a fundraising for the library program that's gonna move forward, the addition. And so I'm still looking for someone to, someone from the Board of Trustees to join me in asking local businesses and, families for, like, coming up with a plan and then going out and asking people for donations. So, I'm going to do it, and I'm pretty sure I have two people from the foundation that are doing it as well. So, it'd be good to have one other trustee.
It'd be good to have one other trustee. Does anyone know if I'm legally allowed to join you? Like, would I be advocating in a way that, we're not, this isn't election related, it's financing, so I should be fine.
I don't see why you couldn't.
Yeah.
I've talked to Brian about it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
Well, we wouldn't, all go to the
Right.
same place, yeah. But, we have to come together with a plan, this first. We're gonna meet in September is the first meeting, which we can get down, and then, go from there.
Have any changes been made in the membership or leadership of the foundation in the last few months?
No.
there is a woman who's come to the last two meetings, but she has not been formally, added to the foundation board, so, and they do that according to their bylaws, so I would assume they had that, so. I think she's still considering whether she wants to be a member.
I think their elections are up in January, so
They're
maybe,
January.
there may be a change. Rosemary's been there, a while, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? All right, can I get a motion to adjourn the annual business meeting?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Second? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we're done with the annual meeting. I think we're just gonna roll right into the next meeting. We're not gonna take a break, so, all right, so I called to order the, regular business meeting of the Hilton Library Board of Trustees. First thing is public, want me to take a second?
No, it's fine, I got it, new page, started.
All right, first thing is public input. Anyone wanna, some public input in? No? Okay, next is treasurer's report and check registry.
So you'll all notice that you got 2 income statements this month, just change it up because you got used to getting one. We thought it has to be a little bit. This is what we had talked about, I think the last 2 months, where there was discussion on giving you more of a true cash basis income statement so you could see funds expended for capital items that went to the balance sheet, but that did come out of this year's budget, so that it was a more representational, number at the very bottom of what we were either over or under budgeted for the year. Now, it's still not a true, excess budget for the year because a significant portion of it was set aside for future capital improvements. So don't presume when you go to the bottom and we're under budget substantially still that we really were that far under budget. It's capital improvements set aside for future years, but it is a more realistic representation of cash to cash. We'll probably try and do that maybe quarterly or biannually going forward, unless the board wants to see more of a true cash budget monthly for the next fiscal year. No one's ever really asked for it, but it is, like I said, a better representation of what you're actually spending on cash because your income is cash basis. Other than that, you got your usual kind of modified cash accrual income statement and your normal accrual balance sheet. If you look at your cash income statement, it's not going to match to the balance sheet. The modified cash accrual income statement is what's going to match back to the balance sheet. This obviously is not final. The audit is not complete, so once the audit is complete, there will likely be at least some small changes to both the balance sheet and the income statement for the 12 months ended June 2018. But for the most part, this will likely be roughly at least what you're going to see in the final audited version that you're going to get from, is it this year we have one? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, so from Marvin.
I would just add that the capital improvements, you're expecting the heat pump project money to come out of this year's budget. But
You highlighted a couple items, it looks like you drew them out of their actual categories.
Right, so that's the modified cash. So those are items that are on the balance sheet because they're capital items. But in order for you to see an actual dollar that left here during the year, they got added into the income statement. So you could see like, hey, we actually spent this much. It went out the door, but it's not an expense for accounting purposes because it's a capital item. So most of the income statement on a monthly basis is on a cash basis. To get it almost to a true cash basis, we made that adjustment, again, just so you could see capital items that went to the balance sheet. Because because our budget is formulated on a cash basis, not an accrual basis. So to go apples to apples,
Okay.
that's what it relates.
Only because I took governmental accounting, I understand. I finally understand you.
Governmental accounting doesn't really exist anymore, but it was governmental last night. Fund accounting, legal.
Okay. So,
I make a motion to accept the treasurer's report, like presented.
second?
I'll second.
Caitlin, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Alright, adopted. Is there a motion to accept, well, where's the first?
The Chris is right behind that.
Alright, there we go.
I'll make a motion to accept the check register as presented.
Is there a
Approve
second?
the check register.
I'll
Is there a
second.
Second by Caitlin, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Adopted, approved. Okay. Thank you very much. Committee report, building and grounds, Jason isn't here, so I guess Tim?
I'll be happy to step up. So the first item is solar update, and I'm looking for a little guidance from you here to review when the G3 initiative was going on. Those students invited Castleman Solar here to look at our solar system upstairs on the roof. And Castleman Solar determined that the system was operating at 3% efficiency and gave us a proposal for a $104,000 project to bring it back up to speed. Naturally, we wanted to get another opinion, so we invited ETM Solar in. That is the company that originally put the panels on the roof in 2009. They sent 3 people and spent 3 hours upstairs with Lou Warner, and they declared the system to be working at 97% efficiency, which is the exact opposite of 3% efficiency, and is, according to them, as good as you can get, because there's a little bit of lag on a 9-year-old system. They do not see anything upstairs that needs to be replaced. The reason that we were inquiring with both companies is that the software and hardware that's used to communicate from the roof to our computers does not work, that ETM originally sold us. Sean, who's in the room, IT head, Sean, contacted them initially and said, can you sell us or give us the updated, software? They said, well, we can sell it to you, but it doesn't really work either. So, as Sean and I talked about in Sean's words, it's nice to run into an honest salesman now and then. So we're at a little bit of a quandary. These two opinions can't both be right.
And apparently it's the only way to tell how much electricity we're getting.
Right, because National Grid won't give you any kind of readout. Although when we're doing lobbying downtown, it might be good to ask people to require National Grid and other utilities to show you what your solar generating is generating. But at any rate, also through Sean's work, we've contacted an independent energy consultant. And by the way, to take a step back, ETM, the second group to come, does not recommend buying or changing anything, including their own communications software. However, they do note that, according to them, more of the roof could be covered in solar panels, and we could legally generate more energy than we are. So that's worth keeping in mind. But they don't want to sell us anything right now. They, came up, spent 3 hours, 3 guys, and refreshing, but also surprising. There's nothing for $10 that they want to sell. So that does lead me to kind of think they might be more correct than Castleman. There's 2 ways I can think to get a read on what's going on. One is to take 2 identical days and shut off the solar panels on the second of the 2 identical days, and then read the amount of energy used by National Grid for each of those days. But of course, that only works when you do it. You could do it occasionally. And the other thing is, it also generates 1 day less worth of electricity for you because you turn it off. The other is to get an independent consultant in here who doesn't sell anything. And again, I'm not quite sure in what part of Sean's work he was looking into this, but I appreciate it. So he's found a consultant who doesn't sell, who just looks at solar systems and tells you what his recommendations are. And that fellow is willing to come out, but his fee is $1,500. So I spoke to Brian, and this was a couple weeks ago, and we decided to defer it to this meeting to see if basically you guys agreed that it would be good to get an independent point of view on our solar panels and look for a direction that does not have a profit motive attached to it.
I would think there's one other option, you could
Okay.
just ask for another solar company to come in. and
Sure, yep.
Check it out.
We could do that.
I don't know.
Before we would do a
Right.
$1,500.
And just see what they say, if they say like 90-something% as well, and
Okay.
and they're trying to sell us stuff.
Have you brought our second opinion back to the people who gave us the first one of 3?
No.
Because it is the polar opposite, it's the
Mhm.
difference of 100, so maybe they made an error somewhere that they haven't seen, like, it just seems really crazy that it's that different.
It does seem crazy, and it's one reason that, I'm talking to you, because if it was a light that was out, we could, get another guy in and out. So get a third opinion.
Maybe the criteria were very different used by the two companies.
Could even be they read it wrong.
Yeah,
and instead of reading 3 is the good, 97 is the bad, they read it backwards, because it just seems weird that it's exactly the mirror image.
Right.
If it was like 20% and 97, that's one thing, but 3 to 97, that, something's
I'd
wrong
be
there.
curious as what they had to say about that.
Yep. Well, I'll get the first company, Castleman, back in, show them what we have from ETM. And, but I think getting a third opinion is a
Yeah.
good idea as well. There's not particularly any hurry, like, there's free energy up there, but you don't wanna spend 104,000 or even 1,500 that you don't have to spend, so, so this sounds like 2 good things to do, so. Any other thoughts on what to do?
Getting a third company that's not gonna cost us?
Typically they'll come out, because there's a chance they can sell you something, so, I have wondered whether a third company would come, but I think there's like 8 or 10 companies.
Oh, There's that one big one that was driving up to Vermont.
Okay. Well, you're about to go that way, right?
It's true.
Get the name.
There's
So,
one in Troy.
okay. Hudson, maybe, isn't Troy Hudson?
I don't know, run by Rodney Wilshire.
Rodney Wilshire. Anybody have any contacts?
Actually, I have a friend who works for some kind of solar company. I'll ask her.
Okay.
I don't know if they do this kind of stuff.
That's a good idea. That's nice.
Okay, and I'll just write Brian as a contact. Maddie, is her name?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you. On the heat pumps, there's not a whole lot to update you on. I may have, can't remember, but I believe I emailed you. So, we originally planned this project to take place in the spring shoulder season so that we wouldn't be affecting patrons or staff at the hottest time of year, but that didn't work out. Heat pumps are custom built for particular jobs. So the second date we were given was July 17th, which is come and gone. And on like July 15th, we talked to Family Dams and they said it's now going to be July 27th, which is this Friday. And so we'll keep you posted. I was talking to the staff about it at morning briefing the other day, and I kind of joked and said we might be doing it in the fall shoulder season when it won't be too hot or too cold. But the preliminary work is all done. The building has been wired for the new heat pumps by a subcontractor. The new building management system is installed, but not truly operational yet, because for it to be truly operational, it needs to be connected to the heat pumps. So currently we have 2 building management software systems running. One is running, the new one is running the exhaust and intake fans on the roof, and the old one is running the heat pumps. And once they start installing heat pumps, 1 or 2 at a time, you know, let's say they installed one on Friday, on Saturday it would be running on the new building management system, and 25 heat pumps would be running, or will be running on the old system. So, you know, I sound a little sarcastic maybe, but I don't have any reason to think there's any problem other than the delay in getting them manufactured, so.
By the way, the solar company is Monolith.
Okay,
Solar.
that's over in Vermont.
I think it's in Troy, like Troy.
That might be the one
outside
in Troy that you're thinking of.
It's just outside Troy, wherever it is, back there. It's before Vermont.
Okay. Questions, concerns on the heat pumps? Okay, and then the next item is you, I
Yep.
think, right?
So if you notice the committee sheet that I handed out, in the bottom right corner, there's the new committee that, I guess it's not a new committee, it's the same committee, but I wanted to beef up, our presidents of, trustees. This is now, you know, the expansion or renewal project is in the phase where the trustees really need to take, kind of hold of this. So I wanted to increase the number of trustees on this committee, and, so these are the new committee members. I also could talk to you about possibly reducing the number of people on the committee. Right now there's staff and there's outside people, so, but there's gotta be, like 15 people on the committee?
Yeah, there's, I believe, either 5 or 6 staff members and then 2 members of the community.
So it's 12. I would be, you know, once again, the committee works best, maybe a little smaller, so, and I would like our board members to kind of have a larger say in it, so I'm interested in reducing, kind of the presence of other people and putting more on the trustees. So, going forward, the renewal is gonna be going to this committee, so I thank you guys. I've talked to all of you about it. You're all interested in serving, so thank you. And this is gonna be doing kind of the legwork, going forward on the renewal.
Can I just
Yep, please.
update people on my conversation with Paul Mays today? He was, you know, kind of eagerly looking for the composition of the new committee, so I'm excited to have that. He thinks that he needs until our September board meeting to have a master plan completed for you as a board to vote on.
Is it possible to get it like a week or two before?
I was thinking that when I was talking to him, so I will ask him, get the plan in advance of the meeting.
Something like that, we definitely need
Okay.
to look at it in advance, I think.
Yep.
Give the people.
Take some time.
He probably does agree too, I would guess, just, I would guess every board he works with asks that
Right.
question. So later in the, meeting, we have a question, I will bring to you a question about exactly when our September board meeting will be, but we can set that aside for the moment.
I always like the
So-
idea, actually, I don't know if you think about this, but meeting with him before the meeting.
Yes, yeah.
So that we can think about it and not be like voting on it right away.
I actually was thinking the same thing, have like a meeting where we give out the plan, we can kind of talk and discuss it, and then, you know, and people that can't come, we'll email to them after, but, you know, this way we can kind of discuss it as a group, and then, you know, some time to think about it before we come back and to vote on it, or discuss it more.
Okay.
I would be interested in something like that.
And so, just to clarify, I mean, in my ideal world, all 11 board members would be there, but that, if it's 6 or more, it makes it an official meeting. So I'll talk to him tomorrow and try to set up some dates when he's available, and then I'll connect with you as chair of the committee to see which of those might work for you. And, you know, if we get 6 people, then we'll have Mark put the word out to the enterprise and so forth, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just call it what it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's a design steering committee, but, you know, strongly encourage that all board members attend, I would say.
I think that sounds good.
So that way it's a committee meeting, it'll be on the books, and if we get over 6, then.
Then it becomes a board meeting, by default, is that correct? So.
Well, we're not voting on anything.
Right.
I don't think it's really,
So we
we're not
won't,
gonna take any official action.
yeah, okay, so we'll just meet as a committee to discuss it and hope that many board members can be there. Okay, super. Good.
Okay, great. Finance.
So as I had in my annual report, we did meet in June to discuss the role of treasurer. That's all. Better defined after that.
Okay, so Carol's happy with the definition, you
Yes.
guys are, is there anything we should know about it, or it's kind of?
Might I remember, is there anything we should, you remember anything we should pass on?
No, it's
It just seems like we clarified everything.
kind of clarified.
I did it during bank regs.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we just changed our rules a little bit.
The rules
It's
were
not
just,
the
yeah.
parent, the bank reps.
Delineated that.
Alright, good, thank you very much, appreciate it. Personnel, labor management?
Well, there's, not too much new. I'm not aware of any labor management meetings coming up, and, the only thing is that there is one contract that will be expiring at the end of the year that we will have to look at.
Thank you, I appreciate you staying on top of it and knowing.
And just in case the other trustees don't know, that is the admin contracts that are coming up at the end of the year.
Okay, alright, policy, looks like there is a policy on the agenda.
There are two, if I may speak
Yeah,
for
please.
Karen.
Yep.
Okay, so, in your packets, there's a 4-page stapled together. The first 2 pages go together and the last 2 pages go together. So, Margaret, listen to me carefully in case I get this wrong, but the first 2 pages, basically, we believe that these 2 policies, are redundant. So we recommend getting rid of page 2, the intellectual freedom and procedures for complaints policy. And on page 1, not changing anything and simply adding, reaffirmed as of, I guess it would now be September 2018, because you're getting it now, and you have to keep it for 1 board meeting interval until you vote on it. But basically, they are redundant.
Do we have
And
to do that just with changes to the, or do we have to do it to reaffirm?
I don't know, it's not a change, except that the
Well,
elimination of
you
the policy,
eliminate
I
it.
suppose, is a change.
Yeah.
But,
That would be,
so we'll just hold it.
I'll just hold it.
yeah,
Any questions on that one?
and this did come out of policy?
Yeah, we
Yes.
met as a committee and.
Great, I
so-
love that you are reducing paperwork, so fantastic.
Thank you. And then the second pair both relate to the rules of public behavior policy, which is page 4 in your packet. I'm sorry, if I, Am
No,
I
sorry,
missing
just
anything?
when did the
Yeah.
policy committee meet?
Didn't realize.
I don't think I got a meeting invite.
okay, I think, was it accurate to say that I'm trying to think, this is a good question, but I think we were directed by the committee chair
Mm-hmm.
to make a recommendation to the
Right.
full board without a meeting. So,
Okay.
you know, if people are comfortable with that, fine, and if they're not,
Given that we're just, in
This
this
is a
one, we're just.
policy.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
fine, I
good.
would say in the future,
Mhm.
you know, I'll step on Karen's toes here, but, we really should, you know, they should meet.
Yeah.
But, that's fine for this time, but,
especially for the other policy committee
yeah,
members,
yeah, yeah.
you know,
Yeah, it's,
Well, surprise.
unaware that you're
Yeah.
not,
This
that
is
we're
not like
recommending
a-
a change.
well,
Yeah.
it could be seen as a major change, but I don't see it as something that, you know, unless it, you mean, but in the future, if she says that, you can refer to me and I'll tell her,
Okay.
like, she has to meet, you know, even for something like this.
And I think,
These two are just kind of cleanups, so.
yeah, and I think she,
Yeah, and that's fine.
I think we actually discussed it, whether it was in a board meeting or out, you know, like right after a board meeting, but we basically showed her how redundant these 2 sets of policies are. And the expedient thing to do was to make a recommendation to you on both of them. So the second, page 3 and page 4 are similar. We're recommending eliminating page 3, which is called the rules policy, and moving its top paragraph into page 4, called the rules of public behavior policy. And basically, all page 3 said is, we have this policy which you can find called rules of public behavior. So there had to be something we don't know that a previous policy committee, you know, maybe made a mistake or maybe saw these as necessary, but
Seems kind of odd.
they really are just redundant. So it's a combination of the 2. And obviously, just like the first 2 pages, we will bring this back at the September board meeting. Yes, Barry?
Have a question on number 6,
Okay,
on the rules of public behavior.
okay.
It says requires patrons to wear shirts, pants, skirts, and shoes or other footwear. by being that specific and not mentioning like shorts or dresses, it's sort of, it is implying that you have to wear pants or skirts, you can't wear a dress, you can't wear shorts. And I don't know, skorts and other things, I mean, it's
I heard kilts.
kilts. It just seems that it's either,
Tunics.
it's both too specific and not specific enough.
There you go.
Yeah, right.
You could say to cover their upper and lower bodies with clothing, or you could get more specific.
No shirt, no shoes, no
Yep.
shirt.
There you go.
Retail says
And no
shirts and
pants or
shoes
skirts.
required.
No.
I mean, retail establishments say shirts and shoes required.
Mhm.
They don't get into the detail of
Pants.
slacks
since
or
we're changing it
skirts or
anyway, maybe-
jackets or.
Maybe we should take out the pants and skirts and
Kick it
just
back
say
to the
required to wear shirts and shoes. And then the other weird thing is shoes or other footwear, like.
Yeah, you know what, we should probably just get rid of shoes too. Just
Kick it back to
shoes and
the-
footwear.
Shirts and footwear?
Not me. Define clothes.
So
You
then
could just
someone's
say
gonna come
pants
and say
slash
define
shorts.
clothes, always.
Dresses
You know.
slash skirts.
Okay.
I think that'd
It's hard.
be better. But why don't you just take it back to the, policy?
All right, sorry,
There you go.
this one, the policy.
There you go.
All right.
Well, we'll try to find the next policies that need to be updated as well, so
Yes,
the meeting is.
should, yeah, you should definitely do that.
And then I have a question, comment on number 14.
You want how you do? You're on the policy committee now?
Yeah.
You can bring it up in the policy committee meeting.
Fine.
Your attention to
Okay.
detail is clearly very good, and I'm glad you're on that committee. That's what we need, I'm serious.
Perfect.
Yes, yes. Okay, so, all right, so that policy will be sent back to committee. Okay, that was it? for the
Yep.
policies? Okay, Verb UHLS?
There's nothing new for that. The gala was well attended, and the UHLS board was happy with the results of that. There were no super long speeches, and we particularly enjoyed the speech from the gentleman from Westerlo. Very succinct. And, other than that, just going along, and a reminder that, the requests for funding are due. And the, library directors, should be aware of that, and hopefully it won't be, like it was last year, where there were a lot of ill feelings from those people who didn't get funding. There's more funding this year than there was last year. So, and there may or may not be as many requests. Last year, Tim Burke, solicited requests, and that didn't turn out to be the right thing for him to do at that time. This year, it's, not as active in soliciting requests.
I might as well jump in there. During my director's report, I was gonna update you, but I did contact our representative at State Ed Office of Facilities Planning to try to find a project that could be done without an engineering review. We've talked about this at previous meetings. We suggested 4 projects, I almost said problems, replacing all the toilets with low-flow toilets, installing a hearing loop and new sound system in the Helderberg room, a cell tower on the roof to enhance phone signal reception, and revamping the solar array up on the roof. And only one of those 4 could be done without an engineering review, which would take 6-8 months for SED to approve. So obviously we would miss the September 1st deadline. One of the 4 projects would be putting a tower on the roof to improve cell phone signal reception. It costs around $25,000. Sean and I and the department heads talked about it, and we believe it would be really kind of unnecessary work. There are a few phone carriers who have a weak signal in the building, but we feel that signal strength is always improving. And we think with a potential, or this is my opinion, not necessarily Sean's, but with a potential renovation going on, spending time installing this tower on the roof might not be structurally a good thing to do for the library. But in general, we feel that patrons would be telling us if there was a need for improved cell phone reception. So we think that, and they're not, and we think that doing all that paperwork to compete for half of $25,000 doesn't seem like the best use of my time right now. So
When does Upper Hudson make the decision to do a submission?
we submit by September 1st, and their committee begins to look at it, and it's not long until they make a decision, correct?
Is it October?
No, not long at all. There are will be a couple meetings in September of the committee that handles.
And we would put up the heat pumps till then?
I think you can't apply for a job that's already in progress, but I can double check that.
We haven't really done.
Because we do have an
done
engineering
work
review.
yet. Yeah.
That's excellent. Maybe,
Why would the toilets require a, study?
because it's stated.
If we don't do it through the state, would it still require a study if,
We could
if
do
you
it
spoke-
ourselves.
Well, if you spoke to the, county legislature and, that's not that much money.
Well, I already did ask, thank you, but I already did ask Dennis Feeney to support that and another project, and he said no, he didn't have any money to give out this year. But my understanding, I guess I'm on TV, but I think we could replace our 10 toilets for approximately $4,500 without anyone ever knowing it. And I think that'd be fine, but it wouldn't be reimbursable, which is kind of the context we're in. I mean, I'd like to save the water. And I might theoretically go ahead and do that. Like actually, if it was 3 or 4 months ago when I was still trying to get projects done under state ed's approval, and because remember the roof was done more cheaply than the grant money that we raised for it, so they required us to spend an extra $86,000 on the building. And had anyone had this toilet idea at the time, I bet we could have squeaked it through, even though we still had been working with SED. But Lou didn't come up with the idea until later. But the upshot of the whole thing is, I'm sorry to say to you guys, but I do not have a project to apply.
Then we could do the heat pumps, I think.
I like that. I'm gonna see if, we applied for it last year.
Wouldn't mind waiting months.
Yeah, we did apply for it last year, so arguably the application
It's all ready.
material is all ready, Can heat pumps work? That's, you might have just made us some money. For this year's grant proposal. That's certainly a call I'll make to Tim Burke tomorrow. That's a great idea. So, thanks for that. So Herb, I'm sorry if you have more on your Upper Hudson.
No,
Bridge.
I don't.
Okay. So, well, that's an awesome idea. I will call them tomorrow.
So foundation we already discussed in the annual meeting.
All right.
Excuse me.
What do we got?
Directors and
Directors and
staff.
staff report.
Okay, I'm gonna try to go fast, because you all can read, so you know this stuff. Since I wrote this last week, there's been no further action on the road behind us, but I do expect it to be imminent. I do want to point out that Town Supervisor Peter Barber has tentatively scheduled a public event here for August 20th, where he would like to update the public on the sidewalk grant, which he has said to me is now likely to be constructed actually in the spring. So we were in this spring, and then we were in this fall, and now we're into next spring. And the issue is that they're having some difficulty getting every property owner to sign on to the exact same plan. And obviously, you can't have the sidewalks going along like this and then going further in and then coming back out. So
The plan is to have them in for farther, so they're safer.
Right, right, and not every property owner loves that, but he's lobbying and trying to get that done. The August 20th meeting, I think we have a wonderful board here. I think that this is a great opportunity for board members to be at a public event with the town supervisor.
We don't have enough time, or?
We don't have a time yet,
Sense of
yeah,
time?
so, but I'm imagining it's either 6:30 or 7, so please come if you're free.
And I'll be out of town.
Okay, so, let's see, we had Staff Development Day, that was wonderful. The self-check machines are really working well, they're much better than the previous technology, and they are being embraced. I don't know, Sean, if you have any numbers off the top of your head, but approximately 20% of our search.
2,500 alone in the YS department, which is
2,500 clone?
Alone.
Alone, okay. 2,500 certs in the youth department, and then overall, the 3 machines are accounting for 20% of our circulation transactions, which really is pretty good. I don't,
I'm not surprised you'd like to use those.
yeah, kids like to use them, and the parents don't want to carry that stack of 15 books all the way up to the front. They get it done, put it in the tote bag, and go. So they are a success. I thank Phil Berardi for pushing us on them. I hope you all saw the nice article in the Enterprise about the success of the new library cards, which are continuing to fly out of here. Also, Phil Berardi, along with Beth Rienti, the head of Youth Services, worked with the GPD and designed a Code Adam procedure for missing children in the library, and then held either 2 or 3 staff training exercises to make sure that
So far.
and then we will revisit that on a regular basis. That's serious business, and so we're taking it seriously. We did have the bear, so if you haven't seen the video of the bear, it's the most popular Facebook post we've ever had. Christina Ronald and Mark Curiali made some recent improvements to the front page of our website, which basically give you a few more choices on the front page, so if you haven't seen that, check it out. We did great outreach at the Tulip Fest and the Pride Parade. And our ice cream scooping event was a wild success.
I wanted to know if you invited Brian to be a scooper at that.
No, but that's a good idea for next
Actually,
year.
got a
The
good
board,
workout.
board president, yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, when my wife did it, she thinks it was the cause of like a tennis elbow condition.
I wouldn't doubt it.
So, but anyway,
It was
so,
nonstop too.
yeah.
I mean, the line was just
Yeah.
there, nonstop.
Aspiring pitchers.
yeah.
How many people were scooping?
Well, we had a total of 7 or 8. Let's see, we could count them here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I didn't mention you, I'm sorry, Barry. 9. A total of 9 scoopers.
And how many?
We gave out 826 bowls of ice cream.
That's like almost 100
Yep, per guy or per
per
scooper.
person? That's crazy.
And it wasn't like people were coming back for seconds. I mean, it was all
Yeah,
just people.
Was it like 2 scoops each or 1 scoop each?
it's 2 scoops for most,
Wow.
yeah. Mike, you scooped
I
as
love
well,
scoops.
sorry.
It
Well,
depended,
that's 10,
it also
that's 10.
depended, because when we got the second batch, it was solid.
Yeah.
The first batch was thought enough that you
Oh,
could scoop.
that's
The
soft.
second one, you were, I mean, that was
So,
a workout.
What you're saying is at the beginning it was a well thought out program, but then when we had to improvise, we were frozen in our tracks.
Yeah.
All right, let's get back on
What-
track.
Now
Were
the
they all
old,
kids or?
mostly
parents?
kids. We served the parents. The old record was 483. So the people running the youth services and promoting the youth services are really doing a great job. Speaking of which, my last thing is, we had a very successful Mardi Gras parade brass band concert in the library. On August 3rd, we have a 50s style sock hop, and on August 10th, it's just basically a big sort of party with a 50s theme for kids. And then on August 10th, we have the Pop-Ups, which is a 2-time Grammy, I don't know if they're Grammy winning or Grammy nominated children's band from Brooklyn. And I believe that's meant to be kind of the summation
Yeah,
of the summer
finale,
reading
more or
program,
less.
the finale, if you will. So that is, and I also want to thank everybody for their support in buying the 50 tickets to the Valley Cats night, which was a lot of fun.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I have one question on the maintenance report.
Okay.
repair the uneven brick pavers. Is that like a difficult thing to do? Because I know if it was in my house, I would just do it, and I have no knowledge of this, but it seems like it's something that one can do on their own.
Well, I did, of course, ask that question, and the answer I got was that it's a lot better done by people who do it all the time. It was nicely done. We didn't just receive estimates, we did the job.
Did the
So,
job.
and they're the same company that did the islands out here with the new stone. But I'm gonna be completely honest and say that I sense a theme, because you've made comments like this in previous board meetings. So now when the maintenance people come to me, my first question is always, can we do this ourselves?
That's good.
Because we can save money if we can do it ourselves, so. But so far, the answer in most cases has been no.
They were out there all day, like 4 guys.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
really was. They
So
were
they
working
ripped them all
hard.
out and like,
I don't know about all,
Not
but
all,
they picked
but
the
a good
hottest day too.
Oh.
Yeah.
But it was 4 guys,
Okay.
and I was watching them. The guy had a hammer, he could smash it.
They're specialized tools, for sure.
Packing the bottom. It wasn't just like picking up 1 or 2 pavers and
Right.
putting a little dirt under it. It was a
So it
pretty
was a pretty big
significant
job.
job. Yeah.
Yep.
And they're fit nicely tightly back together, so it looks
nice,
good.
good.
And as always, like, I don't ever pay more for a job than I have to, but I'm always happy when it's a Gilderland company that does it. Because that's where the tax money that supports the library comes from, so we try to bring it right back to Gilderland.
Who did it?
Number one Stonescaping, guy's name is Dave, one of the co-owners of the company. Good guy, so. Other questions?
It's hard work. to do this.
It is. Actually, that reminds me that Ann Wemple Person from our staff remembered during the recent, she's a librarian, most of you probably know her, but remembered during the recent heat and humidity wave that in some previous years, the GPD had donated water and designated us as a cooling station. So thanks to Ann remembering that, in advance of the heat wave, we got 25 cases of water that Hannaford donated to the GPD and the GPD gave to us. And it was very well received. The reason it reminds me is because we also gave a lot of water to these guys that were doing the stonescaping work. But I think Ann is worthy of some praise if you happen to run into her, because you know, a lot of people who use the library are older than many of us, and therefore subject to potential dehydration. And a lot of other people are kids. So having those patrons in mind like that is just an example of excellent work on the part of the staff. So.
Okay. Any questions, anyone? All right. Is there a motion?
Make a motion to accept the director's staff report as presented.
Is there
I'll
a
second.
Second by Caitlin. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. The reports are adopted. Let's go down to new business. Holiday and closings calendar.
Okay, that's me, so let me pull out a couple pieces of paper. So you should have in your packet this proposed calendar with some shading on it. And on the holiday and closings side of things, I think many of those holiday closings are mandated by our contract. Of course, Jenna and Margaret and I went through all of them, and we don't recommend any changes. This is basically the same lineup that we do every year. Sometimes we look at, if a holiday's gonna fall on a Friday or a Monday, how that'll affect operations. But off the top of my head, I cannot remember which of these holidays are mandated and which are our own choice that we've been doing year after year. However, if nobody's concerned about any of those holiday closure suggestions, we don't have to deal with that particular factor. The one kind of,
My memory is, I don't know if that's correct, but Christmas Eve, usually like Christmas Eve, I think is not in the contract, I believe.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
It is?
oh,
It
it is
is,
now,
yeah.
yeah, it is, yes, so.
What about Thanksgiving Eve?
No,
No, that's not.
Thanksgiving Eve, and is New Year's Eve in the contract?
no.
Okay, so,
That's what it was.
yep. The one sort of optional in terms of where to put it, is Staff Development Day. It used to be in April until maybe 2 years ago. And honestly, I can't remember why we moved it to June, but as long as we have it before school gets out and the summer reading program starts, it tends to be fine. This year, we moved it to a Thursday instead of a Wednesday. Doesn't seem to me to make any difference if it's Wednesday or Thursday, unless somebody else has opinions. Back to the Thanksgiving Eve and New Year's Eve, yes, I believe those are optional. We've done them for several years in a row. I think all the years that I've worked here. And I don't know, Margaret, any idea how many years before that we've been doing Thanksgiving
Quite a
Eve?
few, 20-something.
So 20-something, yeah.
20-something, oh, okay, so a long time, okay.
I believe that was initially at the request of the staff.
And I think the theory, like, Kim, it sounds like you were aware of it, but I think the theory was some people are traveling for the holiday and need to get a head start, and other people are hosting for the holiday. And my guess is too, if we were open, we'd see a pretty light attendance those times.
Okay, fixes that.
So we're comfortable recommending that we continue to close on those afternoons, from 2 o'clock on. Now, there's a separate issue about hours. Yeah, so, as you know, like, I mean, I guess you'd only want one resolution for both questions. So, we talked a little bit in our last board meeting about library hours, and the concept that came up was closing on Friday nights from 6 to 9. And you guys asked us to look at circulation numbers and door count numbers, and we took it upon ourselves to also look at reference question numbers. And you've received a report on that, which we can go over if you'd like. The upshot of it is we decided to not recommend closing at 6, but to recommend closing at 7, because there was considerable activity between 6 and 7 compared to between 7 and 8 and 8 and 9. And the way I put it anecdotally is if you're trying to get here to get movies or books or whatever on a Friday night, in Friday night traffic, you might have a hard time getting here by 6, but you'll definitely be able to get here by 7.
Does that create staffing issues because part-time people work?
There are potential staffing issues that we've talked about. The main one is the full-time staff. The department heads are willing to just stagger the full-time staff so that some would be working 11 to 7 and some would be working 9 to 5 and 10 to 6 and et cetera. There are part-time workers that work particularly in the circulation department at night, and we do have a slight concern that offering them a shift of 5 to 7, they might not want it. Particularly in the case of it's a Friday night, it's 5 o'clock, there's an ice storm. Am I gonna go across town to the public library for 2 hours to make, $25 or whatever it turns out to be, $30? And so that's a concern that, we, in talking with Phil Berardi, the head of the department, we think we can cover that. But if we go down that road as a board, we may have to figure something out further down the road. Margaret, do you remember in particular how Phil was proposing to cover that?
I think on a rotational basis, has he spoken with you at all?
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, that's the plan, or that's the recommendation. The circulation numbers, 1.42% of it takes place after 7 on a Friday night. If you take those 4 numbers about reference questions, they average out to about 1.8% of all reference questions happen on Friday nights between 7 and 9. And the door count, 6.32%, is a slightly different kind of number because it would look more like 1% if it was the door count Friday night from 7 to 9 compared to the door count for the whole week. But it's compared to Friday. So 6.32% of our Friday visitors come after 7. So those numbers, in my opinion, staffing issue is a real issue, but I don't think that a whole lot of people are going to be awfully put out by patrons are gonna be put out by closing after 7. By the same token, we have talked about opening at 9:30 instead of 10 o'clock. And we think we can make up the circulation and door count and probably reference question numbers by opening at 9:30. Our recommendation as department heads, my recommendation, but arrived at with the department heads, is that we should do that 9:30 opening Monday through Saturday rather than Monday through Friday, because having a 10 o'clock opening on one day of the week will just confuse people, and they'll probably be here at 9:30 anyway. And that, we're here anyway. Our staff is all here anyway, starting at 9. So we also like 9:30 instead of 9 o'clock as an opening, because it does give you a little bit of time to turn on your computer, check the email, make sure the cash register is ready to go, make sure we don't have something leaking out of the ceiling or, whatever. As opposed to a 9 o'clock opening where we probably would have to bring some people in earlier than 9 in order to get ready to be open. So we're recommending a 9:30 opening, 6 days a week, and a 7 o'clock closure on Friday nights. My understanding is,
So you think, the Friday night summer, you're actually gonna be open longer, and so there's a real belief that there'll be, you'll get people in between that from the 6 to 7 p.m.?
well, I think we were, we are proposing 7 now instead of 6 there. Maybe we don't add that hour, on Friday nights in the summer, since we've already closed it.
So I guess maybe the million-dollar question is, as proposed, do you think this would cost more money?
We don't think so,
Okay.
yeah, so, but actually,
So if we did it that way, then the summer hours only difference would be Sunday.
So that'd be,
yeah.
And one more hour
yeah,
on Friday?
certainly less confusing.
Yeah, I think it's less confusing.
And the staff is on board, or at least the department heads are
The
on board?
department heads are fine with it. We did think if you guys adopted it, that the first thing we would do is contact the union representatives as a courtesy to let them know that, first of all, these changes, as I understand it, will take effect January 1st of 2019. We're voting on the 2019 calendar rather than the fiscal year calendar that we're in.
Let me ask you why you do that?
Sure.
Why is it the calendar year instead of fiscal? Because you would just approve all the new, holidays and things
Right.
now, but why couldn't it just be for, starting in September? I'm not sure.
The only thing I can think of is, and I know people don't like to hear this, this is the way we've always done it. But it seems to me that the annual meeting which we are in, or which we just had, is the one where our charter requires us to set the schedule in the annual meeting. And since the annual meeting takes place in a fiscal year that's already started, I assume you guys have the power to say these are the hours starting tomorrow, but,
I'd rather we just go with the new non-summer hours starting in September.
keep our summer hours for this year the same.
Summer hours the same, make the change in September.
Well, we didn't even adopt this at the annual meeting. So it seems as though we don't even need to necessarily adopt it at an annual meeting.
Not that you do it the first meeting of the.
Of the fiscal year.
Fiscal year.
This is our first official meeting.
Yeah.
So you wanna make it effective, what?
I make a motion to accept the proposed hours and holiday closing calendar, except to make them effective September after Labor Day.
We do have to be very specific here, because Labor Day falls, I'm pulling up the calendar,
It's
Labor Day falls on
second.
different days every year.
Right.
That's when the summer hours
So
end.
Labor Day is Sunday the first.
Okay.
Once the summer hours end.
So,
that this would take
we're
place.
saying the holiday calendar starts 2019, but the
Correct.
hours are effective September of this
September
year.
Of this year.
Okay.
Well, how about
So it
we
means
get
we're open on
all on the
Sunday.
same schedule and just
No.
adopt,
September
our
1st
schedule
is
now starts
Sunday,
September
right?
1st.
So we're open
Every
Sunday,
year.
because holiday
Yeah,
hours
holidays as
end.
well.
We've already approved the holidays for
Oh, good point.
2018.
So essentially what I'm saying is, after Labor Day, we wouldn't approve Veterans, Thanksgiving, not any of those today, so that way we can finally get on, if we're gonna start, our calendar effective, whatever, September 1st, we'll,
No, that's not, because we
Yeah.
have to have our holidays,
All right.
no connection to schedule.
So
Yeah,
can we,
we know what I'm
can we
saying.
do two separate
Two separate
motions?
Sure, I'll
Yeah.
make a motion during the hours.
Okay. I will second your motion.
Can you repeat the motion?
And what is the motion?
Motion is that we, approve the hours as presented by, staff today with the change, with the amendment that they are effective, after Labor Day.
Okay, Labor Day is September 3rd, Monday the 3rd, so
So it'd be the
Friday.
fourth.
Tuesday is September 4th then?
Yeah, let's make it real specific, effective Tuesday, September
No, it's
4th.
the third.
The 3rd is Labor Day.
No, Monday's the second.
No.
Oh,
That's
19th,
next
never mind.
year.
That's
I'm
next
sorry,
year.
on 19th, yep, sorry.
So it's September 4th, 2018.
Yes.
Okay.
Fourth, we open at 9:30. Yeah.
We're good? Okay.
6 o'clock is better, but.
On Friday?
So what time?
So I've got to get new signs made.
That's it, on the calendar.
That was the motion.
That
Yeah.
was, that was
For
the
the
hours. We
hours.
need the second motion.
Yeah.
We need a second.
Or do you vote on the first one?
We didn't vote.
No, we
on
didn't
it.
vote.
For the closing to the
Okay.
calendar.
We didn't even have a second.
Yes, we did.
You
Yeah.
did it with me.
Oh, okay. Seconded, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, it's adopted. Okay, so now you wanna make the second motion is just gonna be on the calendar.
Right.
I'll make the motion to approve the calendar.
2019 holiday calendar. Seconded by Barbara. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, got it. Okay. September board meeting?
That's not the next item, right? GPL email accounts?
Oh, sorry,
Okay.
yeah.
So this is probably a minor matter, but when I was orienting Mike and Barry and taking another look at the trustee handbook, I happened to notice a recommendation that a best practice is for each of you to have an email address at gilderlandlibrary.org, such as like Barbara Frederigo at gilderlandlibrary.org. And the thinking behind it is that it would remove any doubt of, sorry to use you as an example, Chris, but you have a job with the county, right? Or the state, sorry. You know, is this person writing to me on state business or on public library business? So that's the pro or the positive. The negative is, I would presume it'd be a little hard for you guys to go and check 2 email accounts instead of 1. But I do think there's ways around that where you could like have Barbara Frederigo at gilderlandlibrary.org just forward to your regular personal email address. So I just wondered what you thought about, I mean, there's nobody saying you have to do this, but it seems to me Jason's got a job with the county, you're with the state legislature.
Should we set up to do that?
Yeah,
I think
so
so.
all my emails, and I have several different school work, all get forwarded to my Gmail, so that way I see them all. So that's an option, of course. You know, I don't know how much traffic we get at these emails. You know, if we didn't want this, maybe it might be a good idea just so the president has an email. That way, you know, public or someone else wanted to contact. For the most part, they're probably gonna wanna contact the whole board, so if they're essentially just gonna write an email and just put every single one of our emails in. Whereas if we just had one person, like the president would get the email, that was kind of my thought process, but as I asked him to bring it up, to see what you guys thought. Or if maybe you guys all want emails. Yep.
Okay, my question would be, we have, at the fire department, that's how we have it, where it goes to bnelson@westmerefd.org. And it gets forwarded to my regular email account, AOL account still. It used to be that when we got email like that, we could respond and it would come back to them from bnelson@westmerefd.org. So we knew, they knew, and everything. A few years ago, it got changed, they no longer could do that, so that the responses, if they sent me an email and I responded, now it comes, even though it's sent to bnelson@westmerfd.org, it comes from Uznitsky@AOL.com, the response, which is very confusing. So, that's something I'd like to find out if that's,
I don't know, Sean,
how that would work.
Couldn't we still sign on to the
Yeah,
email
we
account
will, yeah.
and email from our email account?
You can, but I hear what you're saying, Barry, that your or your AOL account, you can't click reply all anymore, or
Right.
reply, so.
You'd have to go on the
You
email
can,
account
but
to
it
do
come, but again, when they first set it up, it was set up so that it came from the fire department account. But then it changed and they no longer could do that.
I'd have to play with it and look at it.
But we could just go to our email,
Or you
Gil
could.
an email account,
Could
So
do
and
that.
then reply.
And
you know?
so that's what I do for my school, like my professor emails me, I get it in my Gmail, but then I have to log on to my
Right.
school to email them. It's certainly a pain, but that's
Yeah.
usually how I handle that. It would be, of course, nicer to be able to do it that way. I don't know if it's possible.
Yeah.
Um,
I
I
don't know
just
anything.
have multiple accounts added to the mail app on my phone, and when I wanna reply, I hit reply, and it doesn't matter who it came from, I can click under which account I'm
Right.
replying
Mhm.
from,
Right.
so.
We don't have that.
But also, I would like them to filter through the president, cause some of it might not be applicable to the rest of the board, it could be just something that.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree that just like the president should have it, because I can't imagine us getting a ton, and whoever it is, it's probably gonna be for everyone anyway.
Right.
So it's probably better if it just filters through me, that way I can kind of filter it
And
out.
should it be a
whoever the president-
generic,
It should just be president,
Right.
I would guess president, and then whoever becomes president after this will
Take
take
that
over,
over.
yeah.
Okay.
so it can live on?
And that way it'll be on the website, so if someone wants to contact the board, they have a way to do it.
Well, that's there now, but, you know, we can change the address.
You can always write a
Well,
letter to them.
they can't like email us, though. Our emails aren't up there or anything.
There is a way to email the board.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
It just has to forward it to you after,
oh.
which is fine.
Yeah, try that. I would be shocked if we ever get any emails, maybe one a year, but they may happen.
Well, Mark, who's it go to now if the board's email, it goes?
I'd have to send one to find out.
But with the library renewal project, it's not a bad idea to have
Yeah.
a way for people to contact us
That's a good
by
point.
email.
That's a good point, and that could be really our, when we have to give out an email, that can be an email we give out too.
Okay.
Alright, put you in charge of it, Sean. See what you come up with. Thank you.
So you guys, you're putting Sean in charge of president at
Yeah.
Guilderlandlibrary.org, and the rest of board members we're not concerned about this. We're not ready.
Yeah, right, everyone's good.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Have badges been ordered for the new board members?
I don't know. Janet, have name tags been made for the new board members? Okay, so, okay.
Mine is sitting right on my kitchen table where I put it to bring with me today, I apologize.
There you go. Yep,
I
yep.
did not wanna have it on its level.
There you go. Yep, yep. Okay, so the next thing is, we have a vendor fair scheduled on October 13th. This is a project of our staff committee, which, especially for Mike and Barry's benefit, our staff committee is a group that raises money to fund a holiday party and to fund flowers for someone whose parents pass away, that sort of thing. When the staff wants to, hold a luncheon, whatever. We can't do that with public money. So we do things like the bus trip in the fall, or the winter, for example, and put that money into the staff account. And so we held a vendor fair in the spring, and it was successful. We had about 25 vendor fairs. And the staff committee has scheduled a vendor fair for October 13th. When we had the one in the spring, we had, was it 3 staff members who exhibited at the vendor fair. They have side businesses. They make craft items, or they sell, Tupperware or Mary Kay or something like that. And the board raised a concern to make sure that the vendors who are also staff members had paid the same amount of money to have a table at the vendor fair as the vendors who were not employed at the library. And I didn't happen to know, but I checked, and that was the case, that staff who were exhibiting had paid the same amount of money to exhibit as members of the public who were exhibiting. So I found that out and brought that concern to the staff committee when the board raised it. I don't know what month, this was April maybe, or and now that we have another vendor fair coming in the fall, I just want to make sure that the board doesn't have any other concerns related to staff members exhibiting at these events.
Will all the money come from the vendor fees, or is there a percentage of sales that will?
It's just the
go to
vendor
library?
fees, so I believe it's
Table.
$25 a table, and
It's a table.
we had 22 tables, I think, and
Okay,
so.
and is there a procedure for collecting New York State tax also?
I believe it's each vendor's responsibility to
Not
collect the
contract.
New York State
Yeah.
tax, yeah. So, they are, fill out their own tax returns and so forth, but that's a good question.
How do you advertise to get the vendors, or how are the vendors selected, or, that would be my only question.
Yep, I don't know, because I am on the staff committee.
Solicited mostly on Facebook. There are groups out on Facebook called 518 vendors.
Mhm.
So just random
Okay.
went out like that. Connections that various people had. We did reach out to a list of vendors that participated in the last vendor fair, which was 2 or 3 years ago.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
we contacted all of them, gave them first dibs on.
Yeah, the selection is first come, first served.
Anyone that
Fine,
sent in
I
their
just wanna make sure
contracts.
it's advertised, so,
Yeah.
and I don't wanna in any way keep staff from not participating, but I want anyone to say that, oh, only staff and their friends were the only ones participating. I wanna make sure
No.
that has to be as wide as possible, so no one can say
Well,
something like that.
we could accommodate 25 vendors.
Mhm.
We ended up having 23 vendors. So if staff did not participate, we would have had $75 less per vendor.
So, I think one of the concerns, thinking back to that time, was, as a staff committee, we should be careful not to internally announce the event before we externally announce the event.
Well-
Correct? So that, if we have 30 vendors for 25 tables, everybody has an equal shot to be first come, first served, whether they're staff members or not. Interestingly, there are 2 hats. At least one of those vendors lives in Gilderland as well. So, the staff vendor lives in Gilderland, and one does not, and I don't know about the third one. But as a Gilderland citizen, that vendor to me is equal to other Gilderland citizens. And shouldn't be told not to participate on any basis.
Well, I guess my point would be, so my wife makes jewelry, and she could say, oh, I wish I had known about this, or, but it was not advertised or anything like that, and so I just want to make sure that it's advertised, so no one could say that. And my wife, I don't think, doesn't want to participate, and I also don't want her to participate. So I'm not applying that, I was using that as an example.
Just urging transparency.
Yes, yes. So.
Yes.
Just to add to what Herb said, it would be the library's responsibility to verify that all vendors have the tax department sales tax certificate that they give for craft fairs and all sorts of stuff like this.
Are we doing that?
To be fair, most vendors, craft vendors do have to collect sales tax and submit. Most other vendors pay their sales tax up front and just recoup it from their.
But they all
on their
still get a
sales.
certificate from the
No,
tax.
we do not, because we don't pay sales tax. We pay the sales tax, but we're paying it to our vendor, our source. So whoever we're buying the product from, we're paying the tax up front. So we're paying tax regardless of whether we collect it or not.
I
You're
thought
talking as a
no,
vendor now?
No.
You're talking.
You're talking as a
different
vendor.
stories.
But when you're
We're
when you're
talking the
collecting,
vendors at the craft fair.
but the vendors at the craft, at
They
this
all have to
vendor
have
event,
a tax department issued certificate.
Some of
if
them
you're
are
technically collecting sales tax, yes. but if you're not collecting sales tax.
And tax department auditors do go around to craft fairs verifying that, and not only the vendor, but the organization putting on the event can get fined for not verifying that every vendor has the certificate and it posts. They have to be posted. I was with the tax department for 30+ years.
Okay, then I'm
That
gonna talk to you
is,
about that.
you know, that is one of the, especially up in this area, that is one area that they really investigate.
Well, we should talk offline about it then
Yeah.
and straighten it out.
Find out what exactly we need.
Yep, okay.
Perfect.
Thanks, Gary.
Thank you for bringing it to our attention.
You bet. So the next thing is, I actually have something written in here that I
Oh,
haven't
yeah,
told you
by all
about. So yesterday afternoon at the Bethlehem Public Library, there was a reported incident of some sort of child abuse, some sort of touching. There's not a whole lot of details out yet. And Bethlehem seems to me to be handling it pretty well. But, you know, having that happen at Bethlehem, and then having just recently gone through the staff training on the Code Adam procedure and also being a parent, I think that it is time for us to consider having security cameras inside the building. We have security cameras in the parking lots, and incidentally, I'd like to consider improving the resolution on them, so that, you know, they can actually read a license plate and that sort of thing. But where I'm at personally with security cameras, when I came here almost 5 years ago, I thought that it might be an intrusion of the privacy of patrons and the privacy of staff. But I just think the world is getting a little crazier. I open that for discussion and just ask if we can have permission to try to price out some security cameras for
It's
inside.
all buildings, so my thought is that if you're in public,
You don't have privacy.
you don't have privacy.
So, yeah.
I got no problem. Is that something that you could apply for the grant? Is that?
You could, I don't know that we could turn that around
Okay.
quick enough for this year, but
Yeah.
we could start. It's a good thought, you know.
Yeah, it's
They
not-
probably need an engineer, you know.
I got no problem with it.
The news this morning, Channel 10 News had that on, and they flashed their security cameras.
Okay.
And I think they're using those as part of their
As
investigation.
part of the investigation.
I think that is the next one again.
Yeah, I think it would be more, you know, for our staff that I know, it wouldn't be about an issue about privacy. They prefer them as a protection measure, because otherwise it's just your word against mine.
Mhm.
If they buy cameras for police,
Mhm.
they're protection.
So we'll, do we need a board vote, or is it just okay to?
Yeah.
I think, seeing that we already passed the budget,
Mhm.
we're gonna have to get some prices.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
all that.
Yep,
Before we
Sure.
make a commitment, yes.
And if
I don't
it's-
think you need a vote to investigate.
Right.
And I think that, one thing that has surprised me a little bit as I've looked at them over the 4 or 5 years is that, they do seem to be less expensive than they might have been a generation ago. And so we might be able to find the budget in the existing budget, you know, for, I guess it would be, the maintenance line, the exact name of which I don't know, but, or it could be the IT line, I don't know. But, we'll get, before we buy anything, we wanna come back to you, unless it's $400, you know,
Yeah.
then maybe we'll just go do it.
Yeah.
But if it's $6,000, I think we should report back to you, you know, so, okay to shop, basically, is, okay, so, all right.
We do wanna put up signs saying that they are there, cause sometimes that, you know, would, you know,
Deter.
deter, you know, deter it as much as the camera.
And there also,
Video surveillance.
okay, there also may be a requirement that you notify the public that they're up, so,
You may, in your research, want to look for state funding. I know schools, they put out a lot of funding to improve security, for example, like cameras. So there may be also funding, or it could be the same pot that you could use to get for libraries.
okay.
Oh, it could be a nice number, but
you think there's a grant, did you happen to say through whom?
The Department of, I have to think about it. I'll let you know.
Okay, and then you said member item. I also might just talk to Carol at the GPD and ask if we have any advice on what to put in, because you want to put something in that's going to be useful if there is a crime. So
Sometimes member items, take 2 years or so to.
Actually, yeah, one-
Really, the Amador will be done right away.
Well, they have different pots.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But our-
If we don't get the money until 2 years later, well, I don't know, there's a lot of work.
my experience, in my brief experience in 4 years, 4.5 years, that the Senate can move it quick and the Assembly cannot. But anyway, okay. So in old business, I think we already covered hours of service. In terms of the board meeting schedule, we talked, I'm gonna mention both of these bolded items at once. So we talked in our last board meeting about moving the monthly board meeting to the third Thursday instead of the second Thursday. And we couldn't actually adopt it last board meeting. I guess we had to let it sit for a month. So that,
The
you know,
world's changing.
yeah, the board was changing. So we can vote on that in a minute, but I don't want you to vote on that without knowing the next subject, which is September 2018 board meeting date. So before, I recommended to you that we have board meetings on the third Thursday of the month. Back in the spring, I had booked a concert here on the third Thursday of September, September 20th. The concert is with a woman named Jacqueline Schwab, who's a solo piano player, and pretty high profile. She's the piano player for all of Ken Burns' PBS specials. So I think it's gonna be a pretty big event, and I would want to be the person running the event because Jacqueline and I are friends, and I don't wanna just push this off onto somebody else. I could reschedule that concert, or I could reschedule our board meeting, which now falls on September 20th with your approval. So I just wanna know if we could pick a different date in September to have our board meeting so that this concert can go ahead.
Let's do the 13th.
The 13th is a date that, that Paul Mays is available. He was thinking that he might wanna be at our next board meeting. So I'm good with the 13th, but you know, you guys have to not just agree on the date, but agree on the concept. Like if you wanna keep it on the 20th, then I need to move the concert, so.
Well, I'm okay with moving the date of the meeting, yeah, certainly anyone else can chip in. Sounds like we're good, so then I guess we have to look for a date, so it's either we do that now, or do we shoot it out at like one of those surveys due by email?
I don't know, I just personally just assume do it now, so.
Get it done.
13th, which is the second Thursday.
Second Thursday.
That's
We've been
fine with
having
me.
meetings on the second Thursday anyway. People used to come.
So the September meeting, if you vote on it, will be on September 13th. And then the larger concept is, I believe there was agreement last time around to move regular board meetings to the third Thursday of the month. So I think the
And we're
approval
also gonna
is
keep it 7 PM
because of the foundation, yeah.
So I make a motion to move the September 20th meeting to September 13th at 7 PM.
Is there a second? Second by Mike. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, it's adopted.
And then second motion that we need?
we
Yeah.
I'll make a motion that we, as a general rule, meet on the third Thursday of the month at 7 PM.
Starting in October of
Starting in October.
2018.
There you go, starting in October. Seconded by Barbara, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right,
Alright,
adopted.
just give me a second.
Yep, take your time.
I like your motion. I like, generally speaking, we meet the third Thursday, unless it's one of the 2 of the last 3 months that Tim has asked us to meet.
I just hope this person shows up this time.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's right, as opposed to Davy Johnson. Yep. As a reminder, we are meeting tonight because Davy Johnson was supposed to be here on the 19th and then
We have a
canceled.
motion, can't take it back.
We wanna meet on days
Beginning in
that Peter
October.
Hubbard is available.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay, when would that be? Sorry.
Okay.
hidden
I
budget.
don't know, he's getting Bosworth territory.
I got it.
Him and Karen. But,
It's how it goes.
I guess we'll have to talk with them. Okay.
My favorite moment was when he posted pictures of his family at the Sistine Chapel, and I put underneath it, I guess this means you aren't coming to tonight's board meeting. So-
Yeah, because he doesn't let anyone know either. Hope he's listening.
But I do love the guy, attendance notwithstanding. So, Mercy,
Taking the over before me.
there you go. Now, where are his priorities? But, the Mercy Caroline update I already gave. Basically, we're waiting to see things happen. I can say that if you go down Winding Brook, often you'll see that the town has already trimmed the corner to make the left turn easier, so they cut down a bunch of trees and foliage there.
By the way, I did see them using transits for the sidewalk thing, so they are.
Is that like surveying?
Yeah.
Okay, yep, okay.
This morning, so I think they are doing some stuff for it already on sidewalk. I guess that's what it seemed
I
like.
wonder how they like convinced someone who said no to put the sidewalk in. But,
So, on the fine free,
They don't have a choice.
on the fine free for children proposal, you have a one-page sheet with some numbers that you requested from me. A reminder that the total 2017 fine revenue from children was just under 13,000. Depending on whether you're looking at adult or juvenile material, Brian had asked for the report on how much stuff is. Oh, they don't have that. Oh, it was emailed. Okay.
want me to make a copy of it? Yeah.
Sure. Do you want me to show you, Jenna? While you're making the copy, anyone mind if we take a quick restroom break?
No.
Okay,
No.
thanks.
Doing pretty good.
Thank you.
So, how were the band kids? They win? Oh.
When you're at the table, somebody buys or something.
Wow.
And if I charge anything.
But is it?
So the rest of the team was slowing them down? What's felt like they were the one carrying the team.
On the full retail.
Yeah.
Yeah. How old are they?
Right.
The retail value is $15.
Earlier,
Where is it?
5 o'clock,
But is it through the Gilman schools or?
I think officially starts at 5:30, that's what I got.
They are.
yeah, 5:30 is food,
Yeah,
and then 6 o'clock.
I see.
yeah.
But I have to be there early
Oh, it's a nice country club.
for the attendance.
Sean, did you try the contact?
And,
Check
As a
the-
Yes.
wedding venue.
the Performing Arts Center has a big,
You got it?
Yeah.
concert that night too, so.
We must have made
It's
it
gonna be
a
crowded.
already with all
Yeah.
your.
With all of our
Yeah,
emails in there.
It'll be limited,
Oh, yeah.
and then you can assess whether.
So everybody else should have this then.
You know,
They
this
should.
caucus may be more crowded,
I don't know who, house check.
So.
That just was forwarded
Come
right
in
to
when I
your
created
your
it.
email, whatever. but you
Yeah,
also
just give me
have
my
it.
Gmail.
Yeah, whatever Jen gave you your email, yeah.
so I think it's.
There, I created a committee.
Email is like Yahoo.
It's got, I created like 15 copies, so there's a bunch of other ones around here somewhere. Is that them right
Yes,
there?
this is that,
Oh,
right here.
A couple of years ago.
So this is the new committee. You haven't changed it, but what's important is this. So I'm adding 4 people to the board members, and now this committee is gonna get us across the line. So so they're gonna have to meet, you know, approve the plans.
I will not directly.
So if you have a concern, I would, at this point,
I know that I was involved with the concept of they saturating all the craft fairs and stuff in this
Almays is
area.
still, I guess, developing the master plan, but I'm guessing that's what, the most recent one we have is this most recent, yes.
buying a car new.
There was a
you pay
reason for
sales tax.
that, and I
When
think
you
it
buy
was
a used car,
because,
you pay sales tax on that same car.
yeah, aesthetically. Well, no, I think what it was is it looks weird when it's a new building and you kind of just continue across. But the back, no one sees the back. Like, you're right, I really be here, but I believe that's what the reasoning was aesthetically it looks weird when you have a new building attached to an older building when it goes straight across. Whereas if you kind of give a little bit of maybe a foot or so, it just
Jenna?
make it look a little less, out of place. That's what I recall.
The other, you're right, and there was another factor, which was that, and it's really hard to explain as a
No,
non-construction.
I think it's,
When you make them flush, you create some drainage problems where with that flush spot. But in a little corner, there's something they can do to not let water down into the new side. Quite as the term, but he was saying it's just a lot easier to keep water down.
My guess is that it's gonna be much smaller than that.
All I know is that
Still, you know,
I'm going to ask again, because I would like to
in the back, where no one's gonna see, like, I can understand maybe a little bit in front, like, the back,
people,
yeah.
because legally, if you have more than two garage sales in a city, you have to collect taxes. I know that they
yes, she
have,
left it in Bonnie left.
again, you can use your social security number in lieu of an EIN, because you don't incorporate or anything, but, you know, my understanding is that they have to collect the sales tax, and that all vendors at these events have to display the sales tax certificate that the tax department provides. Again, if you're not collecting sales tax, they don't know about it. But if you're gonna be at the craft fair, and a sales tax auditor is there, you could get in trouble. I don't know for sure.
That's a bad thing, but not only is it
But, again, I'm not gonna say anything, my understanding is that you have to. But, again, if that's different, I'm not gonna know. But you might wanna, you might wanna contact it to make sure that you're not in violation.
Is that your favorite as well?
Because otherwise, the fine that they levy against you will be much more than any, and again, it's not your own money.
I did, when I saw that one did make me laugh.
You got a library card during the restroom? Awesome.
That's a true
Yes,
letter.
but what you collect from me, if I buy something for you, and it's
So we have to-
$20, and I don't give you,
we're waiting for it?
you don't
You know what,
collect a
no,
dollar
who's the
for
scholar?
your sales
So
tax,
they missed a
whatever
little,
the sales tax
our
is.
fans on Facebook missed a little of the meeting, we'll survive, so let's just go into this.
Okay, so the last item on the main agenda is the fine free for kids. And you guys had asked a number of questions. Brian, and now you have the sheet in front of you. Brian emailed this out to you, but we neglected to make copies for the meeting. It's my fault. So Brian asked what percentage of things are returned on time, 1 to 3 days late, 4 to 7 days late, and more than 8 days late. And we separated that by both adult and kid. Keep in mind, this whole discussion is about juvenile material. It's not necessarily about juveniles, it's about the material that juveniles read, and that's.
It's not things checked out on their cards.
Right, it's juvenile materials, which Barbara or me could go over there and check out 10 storybooks. But it's youth material, and the reason it's that is just the way the computer is set up. So essentially 90%, anywhere between 89.5% and 90.5% of material is returned
So
on
the
time.
fines be according to the materials?
Yes, yep. 90% of material returned on time, about 6% of material returned 1 to 3 days late, about 2% of material returned 4 to 7 days late, and about 2 to 2.5% of material returned more than 8 days late. So, first of all, nice to point out that the national average is 14% return rate, so we're at closer to 10%, which is nice. It's worth pointing out, we don't have figures on this, but Library Journal estimates that it costs a library of our size about $594 a month to collect fines. Our youth fines are coming in at about $1,066 a month. So if National Library Journal's figure is correct, it's costing us just about half
And
of what
where
we
do they
collect.
get that
Well,
number?
we're
I guess
still
from us
making money.
mailing.
Yes,
and
yeah.
Us mailing letters asking them to.
We don't mail a whole lot of letters anymore, but, you know, fielding phone calls from people who say, you know, I got a 20-cent fine, but I actually returned that on Labor Day, you were closed, I put it in the bin, and you gotta talk to the person for 20 minutes, and, you know, what we typically do in a case like that is we just waive it, so we can move on, because we think our time is more valuable than their 20 cents or $1 or whatever.
Yeah.
But you check if the book is
Yeah,
back
we
at
check
the
that it's here.
library.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have to check that, yeah, so.
And the book is back if they just said that when they returned it.
Yeah.
So it's not like they never returned it, just said they returned it.
In every case that someone borrows something, we make sure that it came back, or we charge them for it, you know. But I think that's a really interesting number that, you know, arguably, you know, you're never gonna see the cash. If you cut $13,000 in half, you're never gonna see a pot of $6,500 that you saved. But the time that I spent on the phone with that guy, we're gonna get to spend doing something else. And I think that's important.
You do the calls? to-
No, well, all of us do, you know, so,
Okay.
but I mean, people will call me, you know, or email me and say, hey, look, you know, and then I
But
have to
it's
return that
usually
phone.
not within your job description to
Correct,
do that.
correct. But if someone finds my phone number or email and wants to talk to me, I think it is within my job description to answer there. And unfortunately, that means I then have to go to Phil, the head of CERT, say, Phil, remind me how this works, so that when I call the guy back, you know, I get it right, because we don't want Phil saying one thing and me saying another. It can be costly. But you'll have complaints, you know, about anything, so that's true outside of the fine context as well. I gave you the reasons I recommend it, a one-year trial to eliminate kids' fines. You guys, I know, from one phone call I got today, have been reading, some of you anyway, have been reading some of the stuff, and I do have a follow-up for you, Barbara. You called me earlier with a question, so we'll get to that in a second. But generally, circulation increases when libraries eliminate fines, goodwill is generated, there's improved customer service and customer relations, there's not an automatic assumption of an adversarial relationship. Kids especially don't make negative associations with the library. You guys may laugh, but people who work at a circulation desk tell you there is shaming, there is fear. If you ever do that again, we're not gonna come back. This is what we're trying to get rid of. We're not trying to get rid of $13,000. We're trying to get people to come to the library. You get this cordial, positive atmosphere. Fine revenue has shrunk. Those of you who've been on the board longer probably know that when we started sending out email reminders, stuff started coming back more, so there's less fine revenue being collected anyway. And
I pay less fines then.
I'm sorry.
I pay less fines.
There you go.
The email, it's the email, I'm telling you. It's the best and the worst thing.
And ebooks never have fines. Just to remind you from last,
Disappear.
they do, they just disappear.
But the ebook thing, you know, when a person, when they're done with it, you know, the ebook itself disappears?
The file that they have disappears,
Yeah.
but you've
Right.
purchased a license to circulate it a certain number of times. So the system knows you can circulate it 12 times or whatever the number. Each publisher is a little different. It's maddening that if you buy it from Yahoo, you'll buy it for $6.99, but if you buy it for a library, you might buy it for $59.99 because the publisher knows that you're going to circulate it. You know? So anyway, that latter number might be a little bit inflated, but they charge us more than they charge a consumer for an ebook. Barbara called and asked me, you want to ask the question so that or do you want me to state it? Go ahead.
Okay.
State it your word.
In reading this pile of stuff that we got, one of the things that's jumped out at me is that a lot of the information that we got was from urban libraries where there was a great deal of poverty. And one of the big pushes that I saw in reading the articles, they were making claims that they had a lot of blocked cards for kids from 12 to 18 years of age. And so so these kids can access it, and parents can't get them there, you know, there are all kinds of difficulties. Or somebody, you know, maybe know, and so I asked, well, one of the big benefits that these articles basically unanimously point out is that when you eliminate the fines, then kids come back to the library in pretty good percentages. So I said, well, we're sort of in a different category here in Gilderland. I said, how many co-op cards for 0 to 18 do we have in our own library? So were we at the same result? So that was.
And so that's, the system, that's a great question. And I'm being silly to say it this way, but it's a great question because we could answer it. Like, not every question can be answered quickly with the system. For example, with Brian's question, what percentage of stuff is returned 1 to 3 days late, 4 to 7 days late? The way we had to do that is we had to look at how many items in the course of a year had a 40-cent fine on them, because that means they were returned 2 days late. How many had a 60-cent fine on them, et cetera. Your question was easier. We used 16 as our cutoff date because we actually consider a 17-year-old to be an adult here, which is a separate discussion that I'm not prepared to have because I don't know why. But, so patrons age 0 to 16, we have 2,200 such patrons in our database, 2,271. Those with a fine above $5, which is threshold, is 228. So approximately 10% of the youth card holders are above the threshold. Incidentally, I said to Phil Berardi today, I said, should we raise the threshold to $10, thus allowing people to come in and use the library without necessarily having to pay off their fines? And he said, I see why you're thinking that, but actually a lot of local libraries are reducing it to $2. And the reason they're reducing that is you've usually got 50 cents or 75 cents in your pocket, so you can get below a $2 threshold. But when your threshold is $10 and you owe us $11.50, a lot of people don't have cash on them that will get them under the threshold. So Phil's in favor of keeping the threshold low, which not only keeps the revenue coming in, but his concern is really keeping the material circulating. Overall, Gilderland patrons age 0 to 16 with fines. I'm reading this. Okay, he gave me a slightly different number. So he gave me what I gave you, 228 patrons with fines above $5. And then he said patrons 0 to 16 with fines between $5 and $10, it's only 73 patrons. I don't know what the difference is here, whether it's just 501 versus $5, but it's 1/3, 7, 14, 20, well, not quite a third. But so there's 73 patrons who are kids with fines that are between $5 and $10, and 228 with fines apparently that are $5. I'm going to have to ask him about that.
$5 to $10 is 228.
Right.
Over $10 is not.
Yeah, well, it's
Over-
always.
Five is 220, 0 to 5 is 220.
The second number I have to get clarification.
She said
because-
over $5.
Over 5.
Yeah.
How many 0-year-old kids have cards?
Correct, but you have to put a digit into that
Yeah.
place when you're doing the search.
So these are 2,271 children have cards.
Right, that are
Those-
between
and
0
of
and
those
16
children, 228
are above the
owe
threshold.
more than $5.
Yeah, so when they come to the counter with or without their parents, they will not be allowed to check out because they have, or, they'll be allowed to check out if they get their fines down below $5. And we do get people, Roseanne's here, good, I sensed that Kim was gone, but we do get people who don't pay the whole amount, right? They
Right.
just like
Yeah,
a
they just
dollar
pay
will get
down.
you
Yeah,
under.
and that includes lost material, I'm sure what
Mhm.
Bill did probably
Yeah.
do too. And if they come back and it's fine free, they won't pay anything.
Yeah.
And basically, that's what you want your material back, so someone else can use it.
Which is something.
Fine free, using the, example that you gave before, if Barbara put up her bag of juvenile material for the grandkids and took it back, she doesn't have to worry about returning it all, because she won't get a fine no matter how long.
You should do it.
Return it, so if
Well, you'll
you
get a
get
bill.
the-
You'll get a bill. You'll get a bill.
Yeah, but
All the
after,
books.
And then that
30 days. She'll get a bill for the purchase price of each item,
So-
which
so-
will, and what libraries are finding is they're collecting, libraries that have eliminated fines are finding that they're collecting about 80%, like if we have 13,000 in youth fine revenue, 80% of that number they're collecting in lost revenue. So they're replacing the 13 with 11, plus, you know, theoretically repurchasing that material.
People are losing things because they're not returning?
No, basically people are paying the lost and paid instead of paying the fine. You know, and some people don't want to be bothered, you know, looking for the item. As far as I'm concerned, if I've got a library book, I want to return it just on principle, and I think a lot of people are good people that way. But there are people on the opposite end of the economic spectrum from the poverty people that we're concerned about, where you give them a $20 fine and it's just nothing, you know, and then you can drive by some of these houses, like, why would they be concerned about a $20 fine, you know? But they do use the library, you know, everybody uses the library without regard to socioeconomic, or at least we don't know whether our breakdown, what the incomes of all of our patrons are, but we do know what their addresses are, you know, so.
So, and Barbara's questions were great, because I think they really kind of get to the heart of what what the idea is trying to do, is we're trying to essentially reduce that 228 number. So, if we were to do this as a pilot program, and we came back and looked at it, you know, the determination if this was successful is to see that number reduced. Or at
Right,
least the
and also,
percentage reduced.
in my opinion, to see if your numbers don't change. Like if 90% of the material still comes in on time,
Yeah.
and 6% of it still comes in 1 to 3 days late, then we haven't affected our collection or circulation. But if it drops to 80% of the material coming in on time, which some of you seem to think might happen, and you might be right, then I think we've got an unsuccessful experiment, because when that stuff doesn't come back, then nobody else can use it, you know. Just a couple thoughts down at the bottom there. Altamont has 5 trustees. They took a straw poll about 6 months ago and unanimously support eliminating kids' fines for a 1-year trial beginning on January 1st. They will vote soon on whether that straw poll is an actual board resolution. I think I kind of overstated the last time I was with you at a board meeting. I'm not all that concerned after another month of studying this. If Altamont decides to do it and Altamont reaps some goodwill and we follow them 6 months or a year or 2 years later, I think we'll reap the same goodwill that they reap. I don't think there's an urgency to making this decision, and I think I was conveying some urgency last time that I saw you all. The next sentence says that Upper Hudson Library System is discussing eliminating juvenile fines system-wide and potentially adult fines system-wide. However, you need to know as trustees that there is great difference of opinion among the directors that are having that discussion, because many of them do not believe that Upper Hudson has the authority to make that decision system-wide. They believe that authority rests with the boards of each of the member libraries. So they're trying to figure that out. I can tell you that pretty much every librarian I've talked to believes that the elimination of fines will lead to greater circulation without loss of availability of the material. But I think we can certainly, I'm not selling this very well, but I think to keep open to all possibilities, you could ask for more numbers, you could ask for wait and see, you could let Altamont go first and see what happens to them. They're comparable in the sense that they serve patrons who are also our patrons, but they're also not comparable in the sense that they're a much smaller library than us.
Kids can
Walk
only
to
take
it.
out a certain number of books too, right?
Yeah,
It's
there
up
is.
to 75 items.
Yeah, it's up to 75.
Why don't you do a trial for a
75?
month?
You want to do?
Kids can take up to 75 items out?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, the parents let them.
I thought books was like 15. Not
No.
15 books.
75?
That's what used to be when
Everybody,
my
you
kids
can
were
vary,
here.
everybody in this room has a
You
library
can
card, you
carry.
can check out 75.
Has anyone ever tried, I'm getting
Yes.
off topic.
Yeah.
So it's always a 15.
I once saw a guy take out a lot of
CD,
books. goes around reading to groups of kids.
We have to
so-
check material in so they can get down, so we can check more out.
I have a problem with the timing.
Mhm.
You know, we're going to, you know, be asking the voters, the town of Guilderland to, you know, do a bond issue to, you know, to rebuild the library
Mhm.
soon. And we're asking them for, you know, for their tax money, and their taxes would go up because of that. And then we're telling them that we're sacrificing money that comes into the library.
I feel the opposite. I feel like telling them we're not charging them fees on their material, they'd be more willing to pass a
Well,
bond.
a lot of people who don't have children, and, you know, how are they going to take it, you know? Well, how come, you know, you're asking us for another $100 in taxes, and you're, you know, you're giving these fees that bring money into the library?
I'd agree with you, Herbert, if it was adults that we were
Yeah.
fine free, because
Yeah.
it's kids that make them fine free. I don't think so.
The fines that we're talking about are very low.
Yeah, what is it, like
compared to
0.01%? Like it's,
The amount of
Point zero
cost it
three.
is for the
0.03.
employee to go through the transaction of taking the fine.
Mhm.
So I
But
would
it's
agree with that.
over $1,000 a month, $12,000.
Yeah, 13.
For the year, $13,000.
Might get people donating money.
That
instead of
is one
saying-
option to discuss, is that, I forget what they call it, there's a three-word
Guilt
phrase.
jar.
Well, they kind of,
One
yeah,
is
that's
a
a
guilt
two-word
jar.
phrase, is a guilt jar, and then there's also a three-word phrase where what you say to the patron is, you know, we have eliminated fines, but your fine on this would have been $1.40. There's a donation jar right here if you choose to enter it. And the big library that had done that, I think it might have been Gwinnett County in Georgia, was pulling about 65% of the fine revenue that they would have
I'd be in favor of that.
received.
But again, you put your staff in that uncomfortable position of saying, you know.
Yep. Not only that, but it takes just as much time to explain
Exactly,
all that, so.
exactly.
you know.
The only other idea that I liked in reading this is that, the fines that, or the donations would go like to Gilman Food Pantry.
Ah.
In other words, you would pick
Mhm.
a charity that was non-controversial,
Mhm.
and so there you're still involving the community, you know, for a worthy cause,
Mhm.
and you're still serving them in the way of being fine-free, but if they wanna donate, like they would've, then it goes over.
I personally like that too. And just as a quick aside, I can forward this to the board if you want, but the town just put out an email that the food pantry is kind of in crisis in terms of inventory. So they're currently serving 147 registered families. And by the way, well, let me finish this. So they've put out a list of the kinds of food that they really need, and I will forward that out to you tomorrow. But I did talk to Marie Wiles a little bit about this today, as we were arranging who was picking up Ben and so forth. And I said, you know, based on your question, I said, can you give me a quick rundown on the free and reduced lunch population in the district? And her thought is that the current number is probably somewhere around 16 to 17% for the district, with one catchment, the Altamont catchment, being closer to 30%. And she said over her time as superintendent since 2010, it used to be about 6%, and now it's about 16% or 17%. So her take is that poverty is growing in Gilderland. The food pantry has talked a few times about the kind of people that they're serving. Quite often are people who are temporarily poor due to a job loss or a family split where you know, somebody becomes a single parent and isn't working, but gets on his or her feet after 3 to 6 months. So a lot of our poverty, according to the food pantry, tends to be a little bit transitory. But I personally really love your idea, A, because the food pantry needs help for the people who need help. But B, if we did that on a trial basis, you know, for a month, I think we'd reap, or more, I think we'd reap tremendous goodwill. We're experimenting with this concept. and we're gonna give the proceeds to the food pantry. You know, even if we only did it for a month, they might get $1,000 or $2,000, and that's a lot of money, you know? By the same token with what Herb's saying, $1,000 or $2,000 that we're not gonna do, you know? And with respect to what you're saying, Herb,
It might actually get more money.
they might, and that's what some of the articles say, is that they do. But if you know, I'm hearing what you're saying, and the way I'm hearing it is, maybe since there isn't a whole lot of urgency, you know, maybe we avoid the concern of having a taxpayer feel the way you think they're gonna feel by just making the decision a year from now.
Well, you saw what happened with the property taxes when they were raised in the school districts that, you know, the parts of Gilboa that weren't in the Gilboa school district, people went crazy of having their taxes go up. Yeah, they did. But you know what, in this bond issue, how much of the taxes going up, I don't know. I don't know, but people, you know, people do budget very tightly, you know, for these taxes.
I mean, the same people who
The
are
elderly.
budgeting for their taxes are, you know, it is two sides of the coin. You could reduce their taxes by charging more fees and fines. That's been something that local governments have been doing for at least 20, 25 years. But at the same time, it all seems to come out somewhere of the same person's hide. So, I recommend giving it a try. I personally would be fine with a short-term trial.
Fine-free February, and send it to the food pantry right after the holidays, like they get swamped between between Thanksgiving and then the supplies kind of dwindle. They got a big push for the holidays.
You're gonna do, why don't you start in November?
Because of the holiday.
Because of the holiday,
Yeah.
because
they
the
want
food
more
pantry,
food.
well, because they're getting a lot of food, everyone is thinking about it then. It's, you know, they're reminding people, but it's actually like this time of year that they need the most, because, you know, a lot of schools and businesses do food drives around the holidays, but it's after the holidays that actually they could probably use a bigger boost.
Another factor that I'm sure Barbara knows, is that a lot of kids get a free breakfast and or a free lunch at school, but they don't get that during the summer. So actually on Wednesday afternoons, our department heads we're meeting tomorrow, and one of our agenda items is to figure out how we want to respond in the very short term to the food pantry's call for food. And maybe we can do it. Yeah, yep. So, or even September, you know?
You know, as a,
So you think only a
Actually, we
month?
try to do it in August. Like, it doesn't take long to do it, you know? So,
So you think like a month test run? I mean, are we gonna be able to get any sort of,
traction?
That's what I was thinking, like alliteration, more of like fine-free February, you know, has no permanence to it really whatsoever. Whereas like, oh, we're going fine-free, you know, we could go fine-free for back to school in September. I would just associate it with something like a one-time event.
just
Well,
like when they learn.
We did the can your fines, remember?
Yeah,
Couple
we did
times.
that.
well, I mean, I think if we're gonna do it, like, let's do it for an extended period of time so we can see the data as
Yep.
opposed to just a month, just,
Yeah,
you know,
I
as
agree.
as a gimmick. But I'm inclined to agree, or at least see Herb's point of view that maybe this would be better after a vote. 'Cause I agree. I think, you know, you're certainly gonna piss some people off. I'm probably gonna piss, and the people that you make happy are probably already gonna be happy with us anyway, are gonna vote for us. So I'm inclined to think that you do more harm than good, especially before a bond.
Are we thinking?
Particularly after seeing what happened last time.
What if you do it for a month, it's a good cause, you would have this need immediately, it sounds like.
I would say September because of all the
Are we thinking
materials.
the referendum would be in May of 19? So we would have presumably after the referendum, 6 months of Altamont data to look at as well.
Yep.
Now, remember, Altamont has the latest.
Yeah, but, well, we talked about it in June after the referendum, so.
So Barbara, when you say doing a month, or you guys say doing 2, maybe 3 months of test starting in September, which is National Library Card Sign Up Month, and I would we, I mean, we'd have to be careful how we put the message out. Like, would we say we're experimenting with the concept of going fine-free? Or would we just say, we're going fine-free for 3 months? If you donate food to the food pantry, we will waive your fines. Like, we could say $1 worth of waived fines for every food item you donate, you
I
know?
think it might be better to put out that jar and for a month and just see what happens.
Okay.
I mean, that's just my gut feeling.
So, like, just in terms of the message though, obviously we wanna get it right. So we put out a jar, we say your fine is $4.20. We're waiving it for this month, but we'd like you to consider donating to the food pantry.
Donating something to the food pantry.
Good with that.
That is there's a dire need right now.
You could almost like wait to do any press on it for a little while, so kinda,
Why would why would you do it for a month and not do it for a longer period of time, just so you can then learn from the statistics if we're on this?
I do think a longer period, if what you're saying is a longer period of time will tell us more, I think you're right, you know. The month,
I don't think anything really less than 6 months is gonna tell us anything. I'm honestly inclined to believe anything less than a year probably won't really tell us. We're not gonna be able to get any data. So if we're gonna do this, we gotta do it for at least a year. I mean, you could certainly do it for a month as like a gimmick to raise money for the food pantry. But if you wanna look at the data, if you wanna really, you gotta do it, I would imagine at least a year.
It also introduces the idea to people if you do it for a month.
Mhm.
I'm not opposed to doing it for a month here and then like really kicking the program off down the road.
Yeah, I agree that anything less than 6 months at the
Yeah.
absolute minimum,
Yeah.
you're not gonna have that, and a year gives you, that way if you have a peak couple of months here and a valley here, they even out, but.
a year gives you good data too, in the sense that people use the library very differently when school's out than when it's in.
Yeah.
You know, kids have access to those school libraries 9, maybe 10 months a year, but they don't over the summer, so.
So there's a thought maybe to do a 1-month gimmick, realizing that there's no data, but maybe just getting the people into the idea of kids going fine-free, is that kind of what I'm hearing? And then you would raise money for the
Is
food.
it just kids for the month, or is it?
It'd be everybody, I would think,
Everybody.
yeah.
Everybody?
Oh, it's not kids.
Well,
Hasn't a
We've done it
library,
before.
hasn't a library done things in the past?
Yeah.
Where if you bring in food, you got your fines waived?
We have, but one reason I like Barbara's change on that concept is that there was always question, I guess Roseanne left, but there was always question about, you know, some people would bring in, you know,
Dangerous
the-
food.
You know, a 6-ounce can of tomato paste and get rid of $20 worth of fines. And other people would bring in, and the other thing that happens with food drives, which is unfortunate, is that people bring in outdated food that the
Right.
food pantry then.
Can't
And stuff
take
they
it.
don't want.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So taking their money instead,
But
like
Joe's
saying.
gonna have that with food drives.
Yeah,
I've
but
been
if you do
involved
money
in
instead.
food drives for 30,
money's
40
money.
years up here, and you get them, I mean, people, it's just the nature of some people to try to beat the system.
Also, I know this is a different demographic than an urban setting, but let's just say for, you know, to play around that this wasn't an urban setting, if you're making somebody bring in food in lieu of money, then if that person is the person going through hard times, then isn't that an added pressure?
Sure.
As opposed to let them decide if they
Mhm.
can. I tend to think that people are good
Mhm.
at the end of the day and will, but if you can't, that's even more pressure.
Yeah, if you tell me I have
Excellent.
$1.40
Yeah.
in fines, I'm just gonna put in $2 and walk away,
Right.
you know?
I never thought of
You
that.
may get a
That's
lot
very
of
good point.
Maybe
zucchini
that's the
too,
only
if
time
you
they
do
know
it,
at home,
with
you know,
the
people
bringing food.
can
Yeah,
have
they
it,
don't
it
like it.
happens.
Yeah, oh, I know.
People
They usually say,
Yeah, well, with your name on
you know,
it.
packaged food on it, but if somebody brings us zucchini, we'll run it across the street to the food pantry.
Because if the food pantry gets the cash, they know when they need it.
Yeah.
And they can go and get this.
Right,
$50.
right.
And we can compare
Not my
value
problem.
then as well to what's collected versus the fines that would have been collected.
Mhm.
It's more of an apples to apples comparison.
I'm personally curious to see over like maybe 6 months, what, you know, the data and statistics, because I feel that fines are punitive. I do think that there should be, I mean, you lose an item, you should pay for it definitely. But fines are punitive, it's
Yeah.
almost like a negative reinforcer.
Yes.
And it would be nice to put I feel like, and you're right, Herb, not everyone has kids, and I totally agree with you, but then aren't we banking on kids to bring in material late? Like, maybe they could learn to give money in a more positive way instead of, I don't know, a late fee. Does that make sense?
I think, to Herb's point about the taxpayer and all that, I think by taking away the fines, you want to build a positive, environment with the library structure in general. Because, overall, and I learned this at that class I went to,
Mhm.
is that, we're struggling as far as what a library is good for.
Yeah.
And we're gonna be faced with that when you go and ask people
Yeah.
to increase for expansion. So I think overall, I think this is a small scale, just start on a positive note and take away the fines.
So, thank you. So, in terms of Barbara's idea, you know, I don't mind supporting the food pantry for 3 months or 6 months. But I wonder if we should support the food pantry for 1 month right away in either August or September, and then consider doing some kind of an experiment starting January 1, which is when Altamont wants to start their experiment. I would talk back to Joe Burke and say, we're considering an experiment of 3 months, 6 months, 9, 12, whatever you guys want. And we're going to have the guilt jar, or whatever, waive and request, I think they call it. Like, we waive your fine, but we request that you make a donation. And what some of the literature says is that they're overall getting about 75–80% of what they were gonna get, with a number of patrons getting more, you know. Not just $2 when they owe $1.40, but $5 when they owe $1.40. So we could do a month or two for the food pantry right away, and the shtick at the desk would be, you know, you currently have fines of $2.60. Would you like to pay them, and we will give the money to the food pantry? I think the easiest way to accomplish it would be to ring it in the register and just have Carol, you know, not have to roll quarters later, but you know, write a check to the food pantry.
But there'll be people, if you do have a jar or something, there'll be people who don't owe any money.
That's true. Good point.
Contributing to it.
Sure, and it just looks better than
Yeah.
putting it into.
And I thought the idea was that you could just forgive the fines, you don't have to put fines.
Right.
So logistically, let me ask you, so, and if you wanna do it for everyone, so I owe $15 in fines, and I come in and I didn't realize it, and I wanna check out a book, they say, all right, your fines are waived, would you like to donate?
Mhm.
And I choose not to, and I walk out, my $15 is wiped, and then next month, if we don't do this program, it's still wiped?
Yeah, once you wipe, it's gone. Yeah, it won't. There's no way we could say, you know, if you chose not to donate.
Yeah, no, I wasn't, I was just,
Then
I
it's
was kind
not
of going
choice,
through
right?
the,
So-
I was just kind of going through the playing it in my head, how it would,
Yeah.
kind of work out.
I have a question about interlibrary circulation and fines. How is that gonna work if Altamont goes fine-free, and if it's, you know, technically borrowed from the Gilderland Library, but I picked it up in Altamont, am I still gonna have to pay Gilderland Library fees?
No, it's very complicated, and I'm gonna look for help from Margaret. But Barry brought this up on the phone 2–3 weeks ago. It is the library which owns it, correct?
Yes.
Regardless of where you check it out. So
Yep.
Altamont can, and regardless of where you return it. So
Mhm.
Altamont can make, or us can make the decision to waive fines on our material. But if somebody checks out an Altamont book here and
Mhm.
returns it late here, that's all Altamont's decision on whether they're waiving the fine. So it's the person who owns it, or the
Okay.
library who owns
So
it.
what you just said is, so if you check out an Altamont book from Altamont, bring it back here, you're gonna be collecting a fine for that stuff?
Yeah, fines are
Yeah.
collected at the point of return and capped, correct?
Yeah.
At the point of
Yes.
return?
Yeah.
So,
Is there a lot of that, though, of people
There is.
returning books from Albany or Troy here?
sure, there is, because Western Avenue is a much more convenient location than a lot of the libraries in the system. You find yourself going by all the time, like, Colony has a nice library, but try getting into it, you know, like you have the interstate exit ramps and traffic circles.
So-
you know, So.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
you can't get into it from.
the fines are collected and kept by the library where the book is returned,
Mhm.
regardless of who owned the book.
Right. But if no fine is assessed, because Alton Underhill is not assessing it, then that's a little.
So circulation goes up, as opposed to the other library?
Yeah.
Did you have a point, Mark?
Yeah, if I could just, for a moment, throw in some planning factors to maybe help your decisions. If you're talking about doing a 6-month check of test program, or even a year test program of the fine-free, and it starts, say, September, October, if it's gonna be 6 months, then you're talking about
I don't think we're gonna do 6 months. We're only gonna talk a year.
a year, okay,
Or
a year.
1 month. It's nothing.
All right,
those are
good,
two
then,
choices.
if it's a year, then, at the end of the year, and you decide it doesn't, you don't like it, you're gonna have to reinstitute fines.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Just saying, that'll be a challenge.
You can tell them all you want that it was a trial,
Yeah,
but,
you know, so what I'm saying is, if you're going to do it, you're gonna do it, because I don't think you can go back. And the other thing, and what I'm thinking, and I'm thinking long range, I'm just thinking about May 2019, and that vote, that's what I'm thinking about.
I think we should, you know, maybe
I'll
try
do
it
what you
for a
want,
year,
I'm just letting you know.
starting September 1st, and for the whole year, it would be fines to the food pantry, which I think would buy a tremendous amount of people.
Okay.
See what happens, yeah.
Yeah.
And
I'm
then extend
inclined
it.
for the 1 month. Let's come back and look at
Yeah,
it
yeah,
again.
we got more meetings this year.
Yeah, we don't need to, you know, tie ourselves right now. It sounds like there's a lot of support for doing it for 1 month. We'll see what the, you know, what is said.
Yep.
So we only wanna do it, we wanna do it for everyone then, this month.
Yeah, I do, adults and children.
Even August, I think you could kick it off before.
I think we could, we'll find out tomorrow when we talk to Phil, who's the
Even if
chief
you wanna do it
department.
in like, in conjunction with the food pantry, get some press.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you'd have to.
I
Um,
think September, back to school, like, cause it is a week from now, August is a week, so,
Yeah,
just
getting
in
the
order,
word out.
just to get the word out, to
Yeah.
give them a little more time that this is gonna happen.
They call it food for families or.
Nice.
Something along those.
Tim,
Yo.
that email thing that the town sent to us
Mhm.
mentioned that the library, that you can bring the food to the library as of right now?
Yes.
Yeah, there's
yeah.
always a bin
In the lobby.
Okay.
There's a
So,
grocery cart.
Yeah. So people, they empty that 3 or 4 times a week.
Okay, so there, it is set up already?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it's constantly here, so.
I don't know,
So
it
what do
doesn't
we
seem like
talk-
it'd be that hard to set up, right? I mean, you're waiving everybody's fines.
It's
Right, but
basically,
it's getting the word out about it, letting
Right.
people
You
know.
wanna
Yeah,
get
we-
publicity out of these, what he found.
Yeah, and getting with, on the same page with the food bank.
I mean, that would be the only.
Mark, your press release goes out later this week, but doesn't get printed until, what, August
A week,
3rd?
yeah, a week after.
Yeah.
But, I mean, what month are we talking about, September or
Sounds like,
August?
yeah, we don't think it's done August.
September?
Yeah.
Okay, September for everybody, kids, adults, and it's fine-free, but we're asking you to do this waive and request and maybe help the, food bank, is that what we're talking about too?
We're asking the people, instead of paying a fine to the library, would you donate some sum to the food pantry, and we'll have a container or something.
We need a motion.
Either food or money?
No,
I think we're just trying to get.
Just money.
Just money, yeah. Okay,
but
More or less what she said, but.
you're gonna do fine-free month
Well,
for
we'll
everybody,
come to
and
the
then what are you
conclusion
gonna
on it.
do about the kids? It's just gonna stop. I'm not sure what
Well,
the
essentially,
plan
all we're
is.
saying is there's no more fines for a month, so that's
Well-
really the motion, and then.
But just as a
You're
key
gonna
point,
reinstate fine for adults, and then what?
No, I think
are
they're
we canceling
reinstituting
your
fines
fine
for
if you
everyone
don't,
and gonna
or are we
reevaluate
canceling
the
all
whole thing?
fines?
I think it needs to be one, personally.
Yeah.
You know, I think you're cutting off your nose to spite your face. I think abolishing adult fines
Mhm.
is going to create a greater impact than you realize. I think the initial train of this started with children.
Yep.
And I think you should focus back on the children.
Mhm.
And then see what kind of a dent that imposes on you before you even consider what adults will do.
Mhm.
I'm inclined to agree, I don't know where the adults came from, so,
I'm fine with that.
Wasn't the, more of the fines were from the juvenile, the children, not the adults?
So we collect approximately $50,000 a year in fines, and approximately 13,000 of it is on children's
Yeah.
programs. So 13 and 37.
37, yeah,
So,
that's a lot of money.
And if Altamont's gonna start on January 1st, is that true?
well,
The
they haven't
children's?
voted on it. They haven't voted on it. They
Okay.
straw polled on it, so.
are they all
Kinda
fines?
nice if we all did it at the same time.
Say what? Bill?
Kinda nice.
Yeah, but, I mean, it would be, but I think we're kinda trying to get on this, the food pantry needs stuff right away, right?
Okay, yeah,
I think
no,
that's
I'm
kind
just-
of the impetus of this.
If there's a concern about the money, like Margaret just said, then why are we doing it?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Talking about just for the children, not for the food and
Yes.
But we were saying the money was worth it.
From what?
And
I feel like the food pantry is a way of being there to make it seem more appealing, like,
Yeah.
you know,
It's like they're all,
he's the.
they're all over the
Yeah,
place.
yeah, I guess it's probably my job to get us back to,
What's
on
your
the same
point?
page,
I'll make a
so.
motion.
Is it to?
Wait, can I make a motion?
Go ahead.
Okay, cause I wrote one
wrote it?
down. I make a motion to waive fines and juvenile materials in the month of September with the request that donations be made to the food pantry.
Okay, so that's the motion,
Monetary donation.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
good idea.
And also, here's the question.
Of equal value?
Nope.
No,
just
monetary.
Okay.
So we put this word out, that's great. Are we simply going into the system and erasing all kids' fines, or is it one by one as they come to the counter? Like if,
As they,
Yeah.
as they come to the counter.
It's short term,
Yep.
just one as they come to
Yeah,
the counter.
'cause there's,
Yeah.
you go in, you can pay partial, full, or you can
Yeah.
waive the fine.
right, but we're not just gonna globally
No.
get rid of every
No.
fine
No,
for kids'
no,
material, yeah.
No,
You gotta bring the stuff in,
right.
you have to,
And some might be lost and paid too.
yeah. And lost and paid, we're not gonna waive.
Correct.
They lost an item.
yeah,
Right.
You
obviously,
pay for
like, just the
So,
fine.
Yep, so.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Okay, I want discussion on this before we move,
Seems like we might be opening a can of worms by doing it for 1 month, even though it's for the food bank, which I fully support, or food pantry, I guess, in Gilbert. But we're doing it for a month, and then we're gonna stop it, but we're also looking at doing it permanently without the food bank involved.
Yeah, but we're not
For a
announcing
year.
that.
We're not looking at anything else.
This is just sort of
This is the
putting
test
it on
run, we're
hold
not at
in the
that
water
quite at that
for a
stage.
We're not at the stage.
We're not
of
ready to
doing
make a
this.
decision
I
on.
wanna see the response that this elicits, you know, are people gonna be annoyed, you know, we're gonna get praised, I don't know. So I think this is gonna.
You know, when,
Generate goodwill.
when you do a test, okay, you change one variable. You're talking about changing two variables. Variable one is no fine, variable two is whether somebody gives to the food bank or not. What is the takeaway we wanna have at the end of this experiment? Whether we can support the food bank or the impact
No.
that, now, hang on, or the impact it has on the finance of the library. If you wanna just find out what it has, impact it has on the finance of the library, you take away the food bank.
I think we know the impact.
It's neither of those things for
Right.
this motion.
Yeah.
Right.
This is just, out of these discussions, we've decided this was a good thing to do. Going fine-free and testing that
Yep.
is a discussion we can continue later.
Yep.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, this is not a
This is-
test, I don't think anyone's gonna look at this data and.
Nope.
and-
Okay, good, all right, fair enough.
No, this is just, we decided to do it because
Okay.
it's a
Charitable
good thing
effort.
to do.
Trouble.
Charitable
Then
effort,
why
go
are
ahead.
we just doing the kids? If this has nothing to do with what Tim had proposed the last meeting and what we've spent 45 minutes discussing about going fine-free for the for children, items on a 1-year basis, and this motion has nothing to do with it, then why are we just limiting it to the children's?
Because we don't wanna forgive the adults, fine.
Cause we're just doing something
For 1
good for
month.
the kids in September.
And it's back to
It's-
school
it's
time
just
and
back to school, it's
it's
about
back
the
to school,
kids.
it's,
Right,
it's library card sign-up month, it's all that good stuff.
exactly.
Are you-
And
I-
there's too much money.
Oh, let
involved.
me, let's talk one at a time, we're starting to get out of hand, and this is what I'm here to do. Alright, Mike, you were saying something?
Well, I understand what you're saying with kids and all that, but are you saying that if a kid is late on a fine, or late on a book and has a fine, that he's gonna come, or she's gonna come in and bring food to the food pantry, the kid?
No, there's
No.
no food involved,
It's no food
No.
involved.
Oh, so they're gonna.
just money.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the kid is gonna give money, or the parent is gonna.
Yep.
It depends on your house.
But yeah.
It depends on
Probably
what kind of parent you are.
I don't
But
think,
yeah.
do you think a child is going to, like a 12-year-old, is going to put money in?
I think some parents would make their kids do that. I think if I would say your library book was late, they're not doing a fine, but, you know,
If the parent is involved, correct?
And if they can.
Yes.
right, but they
Parents
might not, but some people might give anyway.
Right.
You know, so,
We'll just find out for a month. What's the harm?
Is it,
Goodwill?
no, go ahead, alright, so that was your point, does anyone else wanna ask any questions? Barry, you good? Sure?
Yeah,
Like you have more.
I just think we keep going back and forth between, we're doing it as a test,
no.
because that's what Barbara just said, that we'll do it for a month and see the results. But
See the
that's not-
outcome, maybe not the results.
But that's like,
We're not looking at the data. We
but
wanna see if,
waiving fines and requesting that they give the money to the food bank is a whole different scenario than waiving fines.
Right, so we're not doing it to collect any sort of qualitative data. We won't get any in 1 month.
Right.
This is more quantitative, observational. How does the CERC staff feel
Yep.
that it's being received? How is the community receiving it? Are we getting good press in the papers? Things that aren't really measurable necessarily in quantitative, but qualitative, just the general feeling for the library, which are two very different things, and we can get one in 1 month, but we cannot get the quantitative in a year,
that should come back.
or in less than a
We
year.
can't check
Right, like that I would like to see, that I think is the only statistic that we, I don't know if it necessarily means anything, but, okay, I'm sorry. Does anyone else have any thoughts? Sure, Barry?
Yeah.
Alright, Mike? Alright, anyone?
I just wanna, is it the food pantry thing that you?
No, I
want?
fully support the
Oh.
food pantry. And if that was the whole focus, hey, let's do this for a month and give the money to food pantry and that's it, I fully support it. It's where we're saying, we wanna do it for the food pantry, but we also wanna see how it might impact the original proposal down the road. That's where I have a problem.
No.
But everyone keeps saying that, oh, let's take a look at it, let's see how the community responds. That's all concepts for proposing a permanent or a 1-year waiver.
So do you wanna propose it 1 year as well?
No,
Or-
I wanna just, if we're gonna do, I fully support the food bank, food pantry, doing it for a month, but let's take everything else off the table in terms of
It is.
looking at it, but it's not because
If it were up to me, I'd
guys
do a
keep-
year.
you guys keep saying, oh, but we'll look at the results from the 1 month and see how it might apply
So,
to the 1 year.
so what do you want, do you have a amendment or change to what we're proposing?
I just
That's
think we
what
should
the
go into
intention.
this saying, let's do this for 1 month to support the food pantry.
That's what the motion says.
And have it.
Okay,
we're
no one
not
else say,
collecting-
yeah,
and
we
we're
won't
not-
say anything else.
And we're
Got
not
it.
collecting data for
Yeah.
future information, we're not looking at it for any other thing.
Okay.
Alright, so I will reread the
You are
motion that
correct.
I made. Motion to waive fines on juvenile materials in the month of September with the request that monetary donations be made to the food pantry.
It was seconded by someone.
Barbara.
Barbara. So, okay, does anyone have any more discussion on this? Then is there a motion, all those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Alright,
David just had a thought that he's mentioned to me, he's not gonna mention it out loud, but if we really just wanna support the food pantry, we collect the fines and write a check to the food pantry.
and that, yeah, that, however we get the money there, it will be figured out, that's logistics, but, yeah, that's.
I think that we
don't-
would look more charitable then, because in a sense, A, I think we would collect more fines that are hanging out there, and B, we are sacrificing our fine revenue for the benefit of the food pantry and our community
It's a better message.
for 1 month.
Well,
better
We're-
message.
But if it's
Sacrificing
a
the
request to
taxpayers'
donate,
money.
that's
No.
different. Then you
It's not
return your books,
taxpayer
your
money.
fines
It
went
is.
away, and you have the choice whether to give a dollar.
But now, if a person, if a child wants to take out a book and they don't have the money for fines, they can't take out the book.
True. And we want to,
We want them to be able to take out the book.
sure.
I mean, the motion passed, so it passed, but now we can certainly talk about this now, but that motion passed.
Okay, we'll figure it out. And, you know, for what it's worth, we have done it on 2 or 3 occasions in the last 5 years for a week at a time, and it always is good public, reaction, so.
Yes.
But a month should give us a little more time to, in fact, I think we did a month once, I think it was a fine-free
And so
February,
we
yeah.
try and keep it can.
Yeah.
I missed it by a day,
Anyway,
we need it.
So let's give it a try and thank you.
All right,
Executive session? Okay,
minutes of the June
Yeah.
2018 board meeting.
Yep.
Is there a
I'll
second?
second.
Second by Chris, all those in favor? Opposed?
Aye.
Hold on.
I think though you two have to abstain.
Well, no, Barry was.
Oh, Barry, right, Barry was here.
But
Oh, I
Mike
noticed it.
abstained, yeah.
Alright, so who's abstaining? Myself
And like,
and Mike?
Okay, it was approved unanimously. It's passed. Yeah. Okay, is there a motion to go into executive session?
I'll make a motion.
Seconded
I'll
by?
second.
Sean, do you have something to bring up?
I just wanted to say.
Oh, yes.
Turns out there is an email address, boardmembers@guilderlandlibrary.org. Everybody's email's already on there, your personal email.
Yeah, but that's an internal email, right?
No, because
You can do that from outside the building?
external too.
All right.
It's just not published.
Let's keep that as an internal, or at least, I don't really want someone, because it goes back to the same thing, then you're essentially, if you wanna talk to the board, you're now emailing all of us, whereas we kinda want one time.
And I looked on the board page just to see where that was. It's the top thing. It's email the board and the link comes to me, info@guildlandlibrary.org.
How many times
And
have
I-
you ever received an email?
When I sent it tonight as a test, that was the first.
There's a pretty good chance it would be, but let's try it out. I don't think it hurts.
Okay.
make sure that everybody's signed, things to sign the agenda.
Has everyone signed what they were supposed to sign for Jenna? It's 3 sheets?
Right in the sheet that came with your, one sheet that's in your.
Actually, I need to go to the bathroom.
So you're-
Motion for, move the executive session? Did everyone?
Yes, we made it, we need to vote on it.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?